Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Douluo, I Level Up Alone. Chapter 61, Xinglo City, Wuhan Palace. This is the highest level branch hall among all the martial soul branch halls in the entire Star Luo Empire. His bishop's name is Harris, and he is one of the 4 platinum bishops. His status is second only to the elders and priests, and his soul power has reached level 88. Among the 4 platinum bishops, he is the most promising candidate to break through the title of Duuo in his lifetime, so he is highly valued by the Pope. At this time, Harris was meticulously handling numerous things in the bishop's palace. Under normal circumstances, the situation of all the branch halls below will be summarized here as soon as possible, and then screened by the candidates below. If there is something that cannot be handled, it will be placed on his desk. Although subordinates have already screened it, things are still heavy. But he didn't complain at all. He dealt with everything during the day and practiced until late at night. He is not as addicted to women as Solace and Miles, who are already old. He is still young and has the opportunity to touch the threshold. An overly indulgent life will make him lose the opportunity to break through. Boom! There was a knock on the heavy solid wood door, and Harris said without even raising his head, "Come in." Gah! The door was pushed open, and a middle-aged man walked in. He cautiously came to Harris's desk and waited silently, not daring to disturb him. After Harris finished handling the affairs at hand, he raised his head, looked at the person, and said calmly, "What's the matter? Tell me. There is a suspected murder by a fallen person, and you need to come and take a look." The man respectfully handed a document to Harris. When Harris heard this, he couldn't help but frown. He took the file and browsed it while asking, "What do you mean by suspicion? There is such a thing as the fallen. Wouldn't it be better to just send out the hunting team? Why do you have to make trouble with me?" Quote. Well, this matter is a bit complicated. The man scratched his cheek in embarrassment. It seems because the evidence is not very sufficient, only testimony. But the source of the testimony is not ordinary people. Who? Harris said casually. Zhu family, Zhu Mo. Who are you talking about? Harris was stunned and raised his head to look at the man. The majestic head of the Zhu family can't even deal with a fallen person. Are you going to bring trouble to the spirit hall? Could that fallen person be a titled Duuo? So this thing is a bit strange. The man recounted the entire incident. The more Harris listened, the more he frowned. So, this was done by a child in his early 10 years. Killed a soul sect team. And finally killed a soul emperor. Well, that's what the Zhu family said. The man shrugged. I don't really believe it, it's too ridiculous. The child can't cultivate so quickly from his mother's womb. The Zhu family is not using our Wuhan palace to eliminate dissidents, is it? Harris sneered when he heard this. He has seen this kind of thing many times. These nobles are polite and courteous on the surface, but secretly they are full of male thieves and female prostitutes. He often did something stinky and framed it on Wuhandian. Or they could use their Wuhan palace to eliminate political opponents. I thought so at first, so I did some research. It turned out that something was really wrong. The man handed over a document again, which was a profile. The first line written on it was Chang Xiao's name. The body of the soul sect team has been found. When we went there, it had been destroyed by the soul beasts. I investigated their mission before their death and found that the order they made before their death was posted by this child. And this child, his age and appearance are consistent with what the Zhu family said, but he has been in Notting City before and has no intersection with the Zhu family. You mean, this soul sect team had some kind of entanglement with it during the mission, which led to the murder and silence? Harris was not stupid, and immediately thought of a possibility. Then let the Notting City Soul Branch Temple please cooperate and invite him to come over for questioning. Based on the level and status of the Star Luo City Spirit Hall, they have the right to ask any spirit branch in any place to cooperate with the investigation unconditionally. No, go directly to Notting City and ask. Don't be fooled by the Zhu family's one-sided story. Harris threw the information on the table and said coldly. Their Wuhan palace is not someone's thugs. If the child is recruited to Xinglo City, after questioning, the Zhu family can directly kill him and silence him so that the child cannot leave Xinglo City. In this Xinglo City, the Zhu family is used to being overbearing, and they really don't care about a human life. That's the problem. That kid graduated early and went to Tiando City. Over there, you know. The man showed helplessness. Tiando City. Solace. Harris was startled, but he did not expect this situation. Solace, like him, is one of the 4 platinum bishops. His soul power is slightly lower than his, but his status is not weaker than his. That guy was old and lustful, and was dim-witted in his work. He handled the affairs of Wuhan Palace very unfairly, and he also took advantage of his status to seize and molest women from good families. Harris had long disliked him and proposed to remove Solace many times. Therefore, every time they gathered in Wuhan City, the two of them ignored each other and made sarcastic remarks. With the relationship between the two of them, it would be extremely difficult to get Solace to cooperate. And Harris could not directly interfere with the affairs within the jurisdiction of Tiando City's Spirit Hall, so presumably this was why his subordinates were in trouble. Harris pondered for a moment, then said calmly, "Then send the document intact to Solace. It's up to him whether he handles it or not. In addition, make a copy, summarize all the information, and add Rush to Wuhan City." The man suddenly understood and showed a smile that instantly understood. With Solace's laziness, he must have thrown it into some nook and cranny after receiving such a thing. When the time comes, Wuhan City will inquire about the results. Hee, Solace looks good. Yes, I'll do it right away. After saying this, the man withdrew respectfully. Yuexuan, a group of boys and girls attended the ceremony wearing Yuexuan's special dresses. Today is not only the opening of the major Soul Master Academies, but it is also the opening ceremony of Yuexuan. In addition to the students, many parents also attended the ceremony to get a glimpse of the youthful vitality of the boys and girls. The parents in attendance were dressed in extraordinary clothes, behaved elegantly, and carried a hint of aristocratic reserve. They talked in low voices with people they knew well. Occasionally they raised their eyes and scanned the place. They were slightly disappointed when they did not see a certain figure. Compared with the past, the number of parents who came this time far exceeded the previous ones, simply because among Yuexuan students, there was a girl with an extremely noble status. The youngest daughter of Emperor Shui Yi, Shui Ke. And this Princess Shui Ke was also deeply doted on by the prince. It is rumored that His Royal Highness Prince Shui Qinghe will be present at this opening ceremony and will personally accompany the princess. After receiving this news, the entire Tiando City, no matter how big or small the nobility, if there were any young people of the right age in the family, they were all sent to Yuexuan to study etiquette, so that they could have the opportunity to participate in Yuexuan's opening ceremony and then have the opportunity contact His Highness the Crown Prince. "Ah, Your Highness the Crown Prince is here." A continuous low-pitched exclamation sounded, and everyone who had been impatient to wait suddenly became energetic and looked at the source of the heat wave. A handsome figure walked into the arena accompanied by a petite girl. He smiled at the corner of his mouth and nodded to everyone. His behavior was graceful and without any pretense, making people feel like spring breeze. He is the person who will take over the highest power in the entire Tiando Empire in the future, Prince Shui Qinghe. In Yuexuan, Chang Xia stood in the corner, observing the eager people with a calm expression. He glanced around him lightly. Not far away, there were also a dozen boys and girls who were very excited. However, unlike the others, they did not dare to step forward. They stood in groups of 3 or 2 and cowered in the corner. Like a mouse in the darkness. Like Chang Xia, they were not children of nobles. They spent a lot of money to find a way to enter Yuexuan, hoping to gain the favor of a certain noble, or become lovers, or choose to be loyal. The entire Yuexuan is like a microcosm of the empire. Ordinary people fawn over the small nobles surround themselves with the big nobles, and the big nobles hope to be valued by the royal family. On the surface, this place is cloaked in etiquette, but underneath it is a fame and fortune fair, where everyone comes to pursue their own desires. Chang Xia has no intention of criticizing, he is also one of them. He also hoped that in this place, he could establish a relationship with Qian Runshui, who was disguised as Shui Qinghe. If it were before, he might have had a headache on how to attract Qian Runshui's attention, but now it was much easier. Because of Yi Renxin's relationship, the two had already met each other. What Chang Xia needs to do now is how to appear in front of Qian Runshui again and let Qian Runshui recall the scene of their first meeting. The opening ceremony of Yuexuan was not the same as that of the Soul Master Academy. It was a bit pretentious but also elegant. First, the freshman's speech. As the most dazzling pearl among the freshmen, the candidate is without exception, and naturally it is Shui Ke, the most beloved daughter of Emperor Shui Yi. Shui Ke stood on the stage with a smile on her face. She lifted up her skirt slightly and nodded gently to the people in the audience. Her raised slender onion fingers were as white as jade. She flexed and stretched her arms gracefully and naturally, without appearing stiff. Everyone in the audience applauded warmly, and all the whispers were full of praise for Shui Ke. The beautiful girl's chin was raised, looking slightly arrogant. The sunlight filtered through the window and hit the swan's neck, which was as smooth as satin. In front of the slightly raised buds, the cold diamonds reflected colorful light. A proud princess will be popular regardless of her beauty or ugliness, not to mention that the princess is also a beautiful girl. But Chang Xiao's eyes didn't stay on her for long, and moved to the gentleman below. Shui Qinghe was also applauding Shui Ke. Chang Xiao's eyes flickered, and he immediately had an idea. Next came the speeches from the parents, and of course it was Shui Qinghe. The applause from the audience became even louder. After the two people gave their speeches, the real highlight of the ceremony had just begun. The dance has begun. The nobles danced gracefully in the beautiful singing, and while rubbing their hair together, they accomplished their goals. Young men want to win the favor of beautiful women, and young girls also hope to gain the attention of their admirers. Under the cover of singing, the parents frequently talked with the prince, just to let their family gain greater benefits from the change of imperial power. Only the young people in the corner looked blankly at the others walking among the crowd holding wine glasses. They were like bystanders, out of tune with everyone in the scene. They rubbed the corners of their clothes and felt uneasy. Chang Xiao chuckled and looked away from them. After the song ended, he stopped the passing waiter and took a glass of wine from the tray in his hand under the surprised look of the waiter. The waiter obviously did not expect this situation. Although his duty is to provide food and drinks for everyone present, look at the groups of low self-esteem teenagers in the corner, let alone taking drinks from the waiter. The last sentence stumbled. The wine is good. Chang Xiao drank the wine in the cup in one gulp, put it back on the tray, and walked towards Shueching River with his head held high under the stunned gaze of the waiter. Does he want to talk to the prince? Not only the waiters, but also the cowering teenagers in the corner and other nobles noticed Chang Xiao's actions. Their eyes widened and shock appeared on their faces. Where did this kid come from? So bold. No one with a slightly lower title would dare to approach the prince. How could he have the confidence? Da da da. During the break between dance music, there was a strange noise in the banquet hall, but no one dared to make loud noises, as that would be a sign of rudeness. The noise formed by the whispers was not harsh, and remained at a certain subtle level, making the sound of the firm and heavy steps even more noticeable. Someone saw Chang Xiao's purpose, and the shadow on his face was clearly visible. Someone is dissatisfied. There is a cue to talk with the prince. According to the title, merit, power, etc., everyone has a steelyard in their heart. They consciously maintain the tacit rules. Even the small nobles cannot be ranked, not to mention that this kind of thing seems to have no origin. Guy. Clatter. A young man stepped sideways and blocked Chang Xiao's path. The young man was tall, and the explosive power of his muscles could be vaguely felt under his uniform. He was much taller than Chang Xiao. He never lowered his head and looked down at Chang Xiao. His eyes were full of warnings and threats, as if to say, "Go back, that kind of big shot is not something someone like you can get in touch with." According to the rules, civilians should be polite to the little nobles and beg for charity. Chang Xiao raised his head, his indifferent eyes unafraid of the boy's threat. He raised the corners of his mouth slightly, put one hand on the boy's ear, and pushed it away. "Get out of the way. Only dogs get in the way." Oops. A burst of low-pitched exclamations broke out from the crowd peeping around, obviously not expecting that this young man of unknown origin would dare to attack a noble. Some people snickered, mocking the scolded boy for being embarrassed. But some people felt offended, and they naturally took the curse to a higher level. They were also part of the group who wanted to stop Chang Xiao, but someone took action first, so there was no need for them to be punished. However, mentally they had already stood up to the boy who blocked the road. On the same front. Dog, who is he scolding? It is their duty to maintain order. Otherwise, if anyone comes to challenge the authority of the nobles, who will take them seriously? Anger built up in the crowd. The young man who was pushed away staggered to steady his body. He did not feel the anger of the people around him who shared his hatred, but seemed to hear the endless ridicule. His emotions of shame and anger were swelling. He was frightened and angry. He turned around quickly and roared in a low voice, "Hey! Stop!" All he got in response was a cold look and a wave of soul power that made everyone shut up. There was a trace of ridicule in Chang Xiao's careless eyes. The deathly silence and cold aura possessed by the Shadow King was like a sticky tentacle, gently brushing across everyone's faces, and a feeling of disgust and fear burst out from the bottom of his heart. The anger hidden in the crowd was instantly silenced. Shui Qinghe was talking to others. Suddenly, his words stopped and he suddenly looked at Chang Xiao. At this moment, he felt the vibration of the seraph martial spirit in his body, which was a kind of anger originating from the martial spirit. The Shadow King is also known as the King of the Undead. The light-type seraphim will naturally be repulsive to the aura of the undead. Especially since the Shadow King is the top undead, the seraphs will naturally sense it, but this sense is a bit complicated. Although there is anger, there is also a very subtle closeness. The smile that had been hanging on the corner of Shui Qinghe's mouth gradually disappeared. He narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at Chang Xiao's cheek. It looked familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere. The young man blocking the road felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He felt as if he was being watched by a cold and poisonous snake at this moment. He swallowed his saliva, and the shameful and angry emotions were like a fire extinguished by cold water, and disappeared without a trace with a hiss. Chang Xiao noticed the young man's trembling fingers. The fluctuations in his soul power dissipated instantly, and he had no intention of taking action against him. There were soul masters in Yuexuan who maintained order. Small conflicts could be resolved privately, but if he disrupted the order of the dance, someone would throw him away. Go out. He looked around and made a silent mockery of the evasive eyes around him. Noble. Ah. The nobles and soul masters stood above the common people, like the rulers of the continent. But in fact, nobles and soul masters are different. The confidence of soul masters comes from their strength. They may be rude, but they have the confidence to overturn the table. What the nobles are proud of is the decadent title, an illusory title, but it is surrounded by everyone's brainless support. They bully the weak and fear the strong, but no one overthrows their rule. It's strange that in a world filled with force, these two kinds of people can coexist with each other. It's really hard to understand. Perhaps the Wuhan Palace is useless. After so many years, it has not been able to wipe out this rotten system. Therefore, when facing a powerful soul master like Dugo, Chang Xiao showed humility and showed the gentle side of human nature to avoid arousing the soul master's resentment. Always show respect to those who wield force, otherwise they will use their fists to teach you what respect is. But when facing the nobles, they have to show their strong side and break the established hierarchy in their hearts. Otherwise, it would be like this now, not even Qian Runshui could get close. As for why Chang Xiao is not afraid of them flipping the table. Anyone who has the ability to lift a table has gone to Tiando Royal Academy. What is he doing in Yuexuan? Yuexuan doesn't teach martial arts or cultivation. All nobles who can cultivate will be sent to the Tiando Royal Academy. Only those with useless martial souls or those without innate soul power will come to Yuexuan to learn etiquette. After graduation, they will rely on the connections here to get married, and finally intervene in the power field. Soul Master Academy and Yuexuan are two completely different routes, and they are completely different from each other. Here, without taking action, Chang Xiao can scare whoever he wants. To a certain extent, he can be regarded as the king of monkeys without tigers in the mountains. As for leaving Yuexuan, the soul master invited by the nobles taught him how to behave. Haha, not to mention that he now has Yi Renxin as a backer. Even if he doesn't, he will not be bullied by ordinary soul masters. He has no fear under the Soul King. Only if he is above the Soul King, he needs to rely on the Shadow Soul Beast to gamble his life with all his strength and fight for a chance of survival. There are no nobles who can ask for the support of the Soul Emperor, but he still has the favor of Yi Renxin and Dugo. Who is afraid of whom? After frightening the malicious gaze and suppressing the nobles who were about to make a move, Chang Xiao stepped forward and, under Shui Qinghe's solemn gaze, stretched out his hand to Shui Ke who was standing aside. Your Highness, may I invite you to dance? Everyone's mandibles slowly drooped, dumbfounded. The shock on Shui Qinghei's face flashed away. He originally thought that the other party came to see him, but he didn't expect that he just came to invite Shui Ke to dance. Shui Ke was also a little surprised, with some confusion in his eyes. But everyone's eyes were focused here, and Shui Ke hesitated for a moment. There were also low-pitched jeers all around. The young man blocking the road was originally ashamed and wanted to leave, but after seeing this scene, he suddenly chuckled. Where does this wild boy come from and wants to invite the princess to dance? Are you dreaming? So what if you are a soul master? Title is a natural barrier. The royal family has countless loyal soul masters. Who do you think you are? Dance with the princess without getting her hands dirty. Chang Xia turned a deaf ear, but did not care about Shui Ke's reaction. Facing Shui Qinghei's scrutinizing gaze, he raised his head, smiled and nodded, with skillful movements, as if the two were already familiar with each other. It was no different from that day when we said goodbye in the hotel. In an instant, Shui Qinghei was awakened by the nodding movement, and the familiar face finally appeared in his mind. It's him, the boy next to Yi Renxin. Shui Qinghei suddenly realized. No wonder he didn't think of it immediately. As a prince, the people around him were like crucian carp crossing the river. He couldn't remember every one of them. Just like the nobles who came to talk to him today, not many of them impressed him, and most of them would be forgotten the next day. When he met Yi Renxin, although he was grateful for the young man's introduction, he didn't take it too seriously. His status as prince provided him with countless conveniences. Wherever he went, someone would take the initiative to introduce him, saving him from the embarrassment of self-introduction. Chang Xia is just one of them. Now that he thought about it, Shui Qinghei had just officially noticed this inconspicuous young man. His thoughts turned slightly and he thought that he wanted to inquire about Yi Renxin's purpose of coming to Tiando City. Maybe he could get some information from this boy. Shui Qinghei patted Shui Ke's arm between his arms without saying anything, and Shui Ke instantly understood what he meant. The confusion on Shui Ke's face was like a flash of snow, replaced by a slightly surprised smile. She stretched out her jade hand and gently placed it on Chang Xiao's hand under everyone's incredible gaze. I accept your invitation. The two walked into the arena and danced gracefully to the sound of music. The contemptuous glances of all the nobles disappeared. They glanced at the expression on the prince's face, and then ordered the people around him with a solemn expression. Ask Yuexuan about where this kid came from. Go and ask, where does this kid live? What is his identity? What is his name? What is his soul power level? I want to know everything. The boy who blocked the road froze with a smile on his face. The whispers around him were not directed at him, but they were like sharp knives piercing his chest. Various emotions of shame, anger, shame, and jealousy were brewing in his heart. At this time, he felt that his face was completely lost in front of all the nobles. He makes people laugh like a circus monkey. Unable to stay any longer, the young man who blocked the way lowered his head, wanting to cover his face, and left the banquet hall as if he was running away. Shui Qinghei didn't pay attention to the surprised and suspicious looks of others. He looked at the two people dancing gracefully in the field, his eyes were a little wandering, and he gently twirled the wine glass with his fingers, thinking about how to get words out of the young man's mouth later. Who are you? Shui Ke had a smile on her lips, her gaze changed with the dance, and there was spring in her eyes, as if she was immersed in singing and dancing, but the next moment, the voice coming out of her lips was cold and indifferent. Curious. Well, I am your dance partner at the moment. Chang Xia joked casually. He has no interest in Shui Ke. To him, this so-called princess is just a vase, a tool who has a relationship with Shui Qinghei. Shui Qinghei's movements did not dodge his gaze. At this moment, Chang Xia already knew that Shui Qinghei had recognized him. It would be much easier from now on. Shui Ke's role was no longer significant. Oh, your purpose is obviously not me. Shui Ke swayed, and her smiling lips made it impossible to tell that she was speaking. You just want to rely on me to attract the attention of the crown prince brother. I can't help you relieve your embarrassment. Benefactor, are you just lying in return? This behavior is not gentlemanly. I thought this was a very gentlemanly answer. Chang Xiao glanced at her. The white greasy on her chest was a bit too dazzling, but it was not spectacular. It was like a budding flower and it did not arouse Chang Xiao's interest. This is the body of a normal girl. Soul masters have developed too early. Under the stimulation of soul power and soul rings, all of them have lost their youth. Why should you care, Your Highness? This is just a show, an appetizer for a formal conversation between politicians. After today, you will no longer be needed to bridge the communication between me and the prince. You and I will never have any interactions again. It means that you are just a tool. After dancing, you can go and cool down wherever you go. Shui Kei's silver teeth were almost broken, but the spring breeze still remained on her face. She buried her cheek on Chang Xiao's shoulder and said sternly, "Aren't you afraid that I will tell the prince your purpose and ruin your life?" "A good thing. Then I have to thank Your Highness the princess." Chang Xiao didn't care. "I don't mind that the prince knows my purpose. This is my sincerity. I showed my value and the prince helped me achieve my goal." Politicians never one will dislike a person because of his emotions. If the prince is swayed by his emotions, then he is not worthy of loyalty, right? Shui Kei was stunned. She didn't expect that the person in front of her would be so calm. In the past, who wouldn't kneel down on one knee and swear allegiance excitedly as long as he could get the favor of the prince? But what did she hear today? A wild boy with unknown origin swore that he would not be loyal to the prince if he could not satisfy him. The situation is reversed. Doesn't he know who is in charge? But this is indeed what Chang Xiao really thinks. Love brain is not a big problem, but if he doesn't even have any political literacy, there is no need for him to place all his hopes on her. It would be better to contact Qibao Glazed Sector Wuhan Palace as soon as possible. It doesn't matter who unites the continent. It doesn't make much difference to Chang Xiao whether it's the Tiando Empire, the Star Luo Empire or the Spirit Hall. He has no great ambitions and does not care about class. He just wants to take advantage of the opportunity to enrich his wings when he is weak, and leave when he has the strength. Becoming a god is his ultimate goal. Therefore, he was prepared to contact Qian Runshui as a speculator. In other words, there is a relatively vague ambiguity period between the two parties. It is like falling in love, and both parties have an investigation process. Qian Runshui is examining whether Chang Xiao is worth winning over, and Chang Xiao is also examining whether Qian Runshui is worthy of being the master. The challenge in the ambiguous period is the tacit understanding between the two parties. If a consensus cannot be reached between the lines, there is no need to talk about anything else. Only when both parties reach an intention to cooperate will they gradually increase their efforts and finally reach a united front. Shui Kei stopped talking and quietly danced with Chang Xiao, her expression dark and unreadable. The song ends and people disperse. Chang Xiao returned Shui Kei to Shui Qinghe, nodded with a smile, and then left. Shui Kei looked at his back with twinkling eyes. What did he say? Shui Qinghe lowered his eyebrows, covered his lips with a wine glass, and asked softly. He is confident in his control over Shui Kei. He has worked hard for many years and loves Shui Kei very much. Shui Kei will never lie to him. As expected, Shui Kei told Shui Qinghe exactly what they had said. Hearing this, Shui Qinghe raised his eyebrows and became more interested in Chang Xiao. Oh. Did he really say that? Yeah, Shui Kei nodded. Shui Qinghe was noncommittal, stopped asking questions, and started chatting with other nobles. Shui Kei's eyes wandered, as if searching for that figure in the crowd, but he couldn't find it in the banquet hall for a long time. Lowering her slightly upturned eyelashes, Shui Kei felt uneasy. Chang Xiao has been waiting for Qian Runshui to send someone to find him. But no one came to call for a long time. Chang Xiao has been tensing up, and he believes that Qian Runshui is also tensing up. Neither of them are fools, and neither of them is willing to take the initiative. For lovers in the ambiguous period, no one is willing to pierce the window paper first, because whoever pierces it first means that whoever loses the initiative, and this situation will not improve much for a long time to come. Chang Xiao is unwilling to be manipulated by Qian Runshui at will, which means that he is too cheap and no different from other loyalists. There is a difference between kneeling down and asking for food and standing up to ask for food. He prefers to stand and ask for food. Qian Runshui is also unwilling to lose the initiative. He is a dignified prince. If he cannot control an ordinary soul master, how will he show his majesty in the future? Everyone wants to maintain the last bit of dignity. Until the end of the banquet, Chang Xiao could not wait to talk with Qian Runshui. Chang Xia frowned, a little disappointed. Forget it, in that case, let's think of other ways. Chang Xia breathed out, not too discouraged. Qian Runshui was not the only one to choose, he had alternatives. If Qian Runshui's path doesn't work, then she will change her goal. After the crowd dispersed, Chang Xia finally walked out of Yuexuan and looked at the sky. It was still early, so he quickly moved to Yejai. He was going to ice and fire Liangyan tomorrow. You must get the 2 herbs, star anise icegrass and fierce apricot jiaoshu. In addition, the autumn water dew that can increase spiritual power is also essential. You must not miss the fragrant Kiluo immortal that can detoxify any toxins. There is also. Chang Xia was counting the jelly grass that needed to be picked tomorrow, thinking that if Dugo didn't agree, he would use the favor he promised in exchange. As soon as he left Yuexuan, he was suddenly stopped by 2 huge men, side by side, almost blocking out the sunlight. Chang Xia raised his head, wondering if dealing with these 2 people would cause a disturbance. He offended all the nobles today and had already expected this result. Are you Chang Xia? Chang Xia nodded. What's the matter? Come with us. One of them said, His Royal Highness wants to see you. Chang Xia had summoned his soul power and was about to knock them down, but he was stunned when he heard this. Unexpectedly, Qian Runshui was willing to bow her head after the show was over. However, it's not too late. In the end he won. A smile appeared on Chang Xiao's lips. Lead the way. Led by the 2 of them, Chang Xia came to a tea house not far from Yuexuan. He went upstairs to an attic on the highest floor. When he opened the door, he saw the gentle and elegant man. Chang Xiaoshiren sat in front of Shui Qinghe, not showing any humility. Shui Qinghe raised his eyebrows but did not get angry. Instead, he poured him a cup of tea. What would you like? Chang Xia held the teacup for a moment and chuckled. What can your highness give me? Shui Qinghe frowned. If he ascends the throne, he will be able to give more. Can you afford it? After thinking about it, it was obvious that the title was not what the other party wanted. Most soul masters disdained titles, especially an arrogant person like Chang Xia. Soul rings and soul bones. Oh, but are you worthy? I can give you whatever you want, but what is your value? At this point, Qian Runshui still refused to give up the initiative and tried to suppress Chang Xiao's edge during the conversation. The person who takes the initiative at the beginning cannot maintain the advantage forever. Throughout the entire process, there may be tiny mistakes made in every detail. Mistakes accumulate and the advantage is completely lost, eventually being overwhelmed by the opponent. Qian Runshui is trying to regain the initiative at this time. If Chang Xia cannot show his value, the 2 people's positions will return to the original situation. Of course Chang Xia will not be easily led by Qian Runshui. If he stupidly tells Qian Runshui what he can do and what value he has to you, then he will only become a tool. The kind that you throw away after use. It seems that His Highness doesn't trust me very much yet. Chang Xia shrugged and smiled nonchalantly, but it doesn't matter. This is the first time we have met. Both parties are very wary, but I think that with future cooperation, you and I the level of trust will gradually increase. Well, let me tell you a story, Your Highness. I've met a big shot these days. Chang Xia seemed not to notice Shui Qinghe's cold eyes, and rambled on as if nothing had happened. Following Chang Xiao's words, Shui Qinghe's cold eyes flickered, because the big shot in Chang Xiao's mouth was Yi Renxin. And this is what Shui Qinghe urgently needs to know in the near future. Chang Xia did not tell Shui Qinghe the whole process word for word. It was unnecessary and made him lose his mystery. Only half-truths and half-falsehoods, which temporarily make Shui Qinghe unable to tell the difference between reality and reality, can give him more room to operate. He still has a way of making up stories, so in his mouth, he and Dugo had a very happy conversation. Dugo even planned to match him up with his granddaughter, but he refused. And Yi Renxin was even more fond of him and wanted to accept him as his disciple. Anyway, Shui Qinghe couldn't verify what he said, so why not just let him make it up? Dugo. Shui Qinghe's expression remained unchanged and he murmured in his heart. This is troublesome. Although Dugo is not strong enough, he is still a titled Douluo. If he wants to kill Yi Renxin quietly under his hand, it will be difficult for him to kill Yi Renxin, whether it is blood stabbing or Shi Long. Oh, by the way, After today, I will move in with Mr. Yi. Hearing this, Shui Qinghei's expression finally changed. He calmly put his elbows on the table and intertwined his fingers to cover the lower half of his face. Living with Yi Renxin, wouldn't that be the best traitor? If he can successfully win over Chang Xia, he will be able to control Yi Renxin's whereabouts in real time and find a more suitable opportunity to launch his plan. In particular, this Chang Xia doesn't seem to be a peaceful person, and taking the initiative to contact him already shows the problem. If he could be given a satisfactory reward, he would surely be allowed to reveal some traces of Yi Renxin, and he would not be rejected. It's just that such people are also a bit difficult to control. Shui Qinghei didn't like this feeling. His childhood experiences have made him develop a character that likes to be in control of everything, which can give him a complete sense of security. But now someone came to him and refused to be used by him or be limited by him. This made him feel extremely irritated. Soul bones. Shui Qinghei suppressed the restlessness in his heart and stretched out 3 fingers, at least 3 soul bones, each one guaranteed to be more than 10,000 years old. He is more than just the crown prince of the Tiando Empire. She can also have a great influence on the enshrinement hall of Wuhan Palace. In addition, after ascending the throne, she can fully control one of the 2 empires. It is not difficult to take out 3 10,000-year soul bones. Chang Xiao raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Qian Runshui to be so generous. You must know that the soul bones are not as dirty as they were 10,000 years ago. They seem to be free of money for thousands of years and were even put up for public auction. In this era, soul bones are still rare and are passed down from generation to generation by almost every force. Even the Spirit Palace will not easily reward 10,000-year soul bones. What Wuhan Palace prepared for Huliena and the others was only 10,000 years per person. But now, Qian Runshui promised 3 yuan. This courage. Even Chang Xiao couldn't help but give a thumbs up secretly. However, Chang Xiao was not interested. The soul bone positions are limited. Except for the external soul bone, there are only 6 positions, so 1 is less than 1. For other people, 10,000 years is not bad, but Chang Xiao didn't like it. He just pinched his fingers and calculated 3 yuan for 100,000 years. Seeing Chang Xiao smile and say nothing, Shui Qinghei's heart sank. Could it be that this couldn't impress him? The wind on the Shuiqing River was light and the clouds were light, showing no emotion at all. At the same time, he took out a gold medal from his arms and placed it on the table, gently pushing it to Chang Xiao. Besides, you hold this sign. It is my personal token. If anything happens in the future, you can take it and come to the palace to find me. The gold medal is simply engraved with the word, Tian, but it contains a special wave. His Royal Highness is so generous, but do you want me to do anything fatal? Chang Xiao smiled and shook his head, glanced at the token, and asked jokingly instead of taking it. Brother Chang is joking. Brother Chang's performance in Yuexuan today impressed me. At that time, I guessed that Brother Chang was no ordinary person. Now it seems that the choices of Senior Yi and Senior Dugo have proved my vision. Shui Qinghei served Chang Xiao shu tea. I did want to get Brother Chang's loyalty at first, but after this conversation, I knew it was impossible. With Dugo Mian and Mr. Yi, there is no need for Brother Chang to compromise. But it doesn't matter. I like to make friends most in my life. How about we treat each other as friends regardless of our superiority or inferiority? 3 soul bones are not a gift. It tarnishes the friendship between you and me. I admire Brother Chang's magnanimity in being able to interact with Dugo Mian and Senior Yi, so I invest in you, that's all. I know Brother Chang may have feelings for me. Be wary, but as Brother Chang said, trust is built slowly, and Brother Chang will know who I am in the future, and what I say is definitely not false. Shui Qinghei's eyes were sincere, as if he really didn't want anything in return. But where is there a free lunch in this world? As long as Chang Xiao accepts the token and soul bone, Shui Qinghei will naturally have a way to make Chang Xiao submissive in the future. He has many means. Your Highness, you are not sincere. That's all. There will be many opportunities in the future. Let's stop here today. Chang Xiao shook his head and stood up to leave. That's right. After talking at length with Dugo Mian all night, I found that there is no poison on this continent that is incurable. But there is something that is so poisonous that countless people are willing to die on it. Can your highness guess what it is? Shui Qinghe originally wanted to persuade him to stay, but when he heard this, he was suddenly startled, his pupils trembled slightly. Poison. Why did he mention poison? It was so unexpected. Could he have guessed something? No, it's impossible. Don't scare yourself, he hasn't done anything yet. When Shui Qinghe regained consciousness and calmed down, there was no trace of Chang Xia at the door. He felt uncertain, sat back in his chair, and thought about what Chang Xia said before leaving. It shouldn't be alluding to something. It's impossible for anyone to guess it. But it shouldn't be just said casually. It's a puzzle for me. Shui Qinghe thought, it's extremely poisonous, but it can make people willing to die. After leaving the tea house, Chang Xia looked at the sky, which was already dark. This conversation took him a long time, and it seemed that he would not be able to make it in time to move. Luring them with benefits and showing them sincerity is quite magnanimous. Recalling the conversation with Qian Runshui, Chang Xia also had a preliminary understanding of Qian Runshui's character. First use the soul bone to arouse greed, and then use the token to show sincerity. In a few words, the interest-based alliance, when they first met, was eliminated, and they only talked about friendship. As a prince, these methods are considered qualified. But it's useless to him. Just want to impress him with 3 soul bones and a token. Dreaming. If he really wants to take it, he doesn't know what means are waiting for him later. If it were the vast sea universe cover, he might still consider it. It's not that there is no gain at all. At least we have contact. It will be much easier later. Just wait until the woman takes the bait. Walking through the streets and alleys, Chang Xia came to the outer city, which was already very remote. Most of the people who lived here came to Tiando City to make a living, but had no money to rent in the inner city, so they could only live here together. Because of the mix of people, the security was also a bit chaotic. At night, people stayed behind closed doors to avoid any accidents. Chang Xia also lives here. The family left him a lot of money, but it was not enough for him to live in the inner city and squander it. In order to reduce expenses, Chang Xia chose to live in the outer city. Fortunately, I will move to Yejai tomorrow, so I don't have to commute between the 2 cities every day. Chang Xia returned to his temporary residence, pushed open the door and walked in. The foot he just stepped in suddenly stopped, his expression changed slightly, he quickly took it back, closed the door, turned around and ran away. Catch him! A low shout came from the door. Boom! Several tough men broke out of the door and chased Chang Xia. Whizzing! There were a few more bursts of wind, and several people suddenly jumped out, blocking Chang Xiao's path. Chang Xia didn't stop, but accelerated forward and hit the wall with his head buried in the air. Good boy, you're looking for death. A man saw this and grinned ferociously. He took a step sideways and blocked Chang Xiao's way. 3 soul rings, 1 white and 2 yellow, rose up under his feet. The 3rd soul ring lit up. The man's arms suddenly became thicker, and his whole body was covered with a layer of golden light, making him look indestructible. The man shouted, and put Chang Xiao's arms into his arms, trying to restrain him. Puff! With a muffled groan, the man's ferocious smile froze on his face, and the life gradually disappeared from his pupils. He lowered his head in shock and saw a pair of cold eyes, and his chest had already been penetrated by Chang Xiao's left hand. Crystal Terraclaw. The crystal metacarpal bones engraved with golden cloud patterns are almost difficult to see clearly under the cover of night. Everyone's eyes were dazzled when they saw that Chang Xiao's hand seemed to be entangled with a faint golden thread, which directly broke through his strongest defensive soul skill, without any hindrance at all. Boom! Chang Xia coldly took his hand from the man's chest and pushed the body gently, and the body fell down. With a cold murderous intent on his face, he glanced at the few people who had taken the opportunity to surround him. 1, 2, 3, there are 6 left. Chang Xia silently counted the number of opponents. Be careful, this kid must have a soul bone. The man who seemed to be the leader warned everyone. They were able to crush the defensive soul skills without even releasing their martial souls and soul rings. Apart from soul bones, they couldn't think of any other means. Whoever kills him will get his soul and bones. Someone suggested. Good. Seeing that they started to divide the spoils before they could deal with him, Chang Xia couldn't help but frown and asked, aren't you in the same group? Boy, you have offended a lot of people today. A short man with a rat beard, not much taller than Chang Xia, licked his lips and looked greedily at Chang Xiao's left arm. Hey, Chang Xia chuckled softly. Of course he knew that he offended many people, and the ones he offended were those decadent nobles whose minds were all about class. The publicity in the banquet hall made many nobles dissatisfied with his behavior. In their opinion, he should just flatter the little nobles honestly, instead of inviting the princess to dance without authorization and attracting the prince's attention. There is not much meat in the power field, and they do not allow a businessman from a lowly background to compete with them at the same table. Although Chang Xia himself had no intention of participating in the power struggle, his behavior was already a declaration of war in the eyes of the nobles. He acted quickly, and it only took him half a day to find out where he was, and he came to trouble him unscrupulously. Chang Xia knew that this was just the first batch. After a few days, there would be a steady stream of troubles coming to his door. Originally, Chang Xia planned to move to Yi's house quickly during the day, so as to scare some blind people. Unexpectedly, Qian Runshui intercepted her on the way, and when she came out, it was night, attracting these hyenas. Chang Xia took a deep breath and calmly estimated the gap between the two parties. If you can use the Shadow Soul Beast, don't use it. Although this is an outer city, the huge spirit beast will definitely attract other people. While he was secretly planning, Chang Xiao's mind suddenly felt like it had been scratched by countless steel knives, and the pain was unbearable. Chang Xiao groaned, his legs and feet became weak, and he knelt down on one knee. It's a spiritual martial spirit. The pain made Chang Xiao unable to open his eyes. In the slits of his slightly squinted eyes, there were numerous figures, and a purple soul ring hidden behind everyone was blooming with light. It's him. Chang Xiao gritted his teeth and secretly gathered strength. He had to get rid of that guy first. Otherwise it will be a big loss. Let's do it. After eating Fan Er's third soul skill, he may not even be able to stand up now. The soul bone belongs to me. The man's voice was dull from behind the shadow. I know, I know. The short rat beard waved his hand impatiently, stepped forward and slashed with his knife. Chang Xiao suddenly raised his head, his red eyes seemed to choose someone to devour, which made the little mouse bear tremble, but then his face turned grim. How dare you stare at me even if you are going to die? Buzz. In an instant, two soul rings, one yellow and one purple, appeared at Chang Xiao's feet. The short mouse beard was immediately shocked, and the ferocious face suddenly changed drastically. 1,000-year soul rings. The remaining people suddenly opened their eyes wide and looked at the purple second soul ring in disbelief. Impossible, someone exclaimed, extremely shocked. Idiot, what are you doing standing there? Kill him, you are looking for death. A man rushed forward and cursed Mousewhisker angrily. Mouseshoe stirred up, reacted immediately, and took action with him. One of the two wielded a soul knife and slashed down angrily, while the other dug out his heart with sharp claws, showing a strong murderous intention. Everything happened in a flash of lightning, and almost at the same time, the purple soul ring lit up. The darkness is like a rewinding current, wrapping Chang Xiao in it like a black egg. Bang bang. There were two loud noises, and the black ball remained motionless, leaving not even a trace. Here comes another person. Let's do it together. Use the strongest soul skills. The three people surrounded the ball and all used their strongest soul skills. 3 soul rings, 2 purple and 1 yellow, lit up at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. Under the combined efforts of the 3 people, the ball suddenly cracked like broken glass, with countless cracks appearing. Wait. The man hiding at the back suddenly realized something was wrong and shouted out, but by this time it was too late. His martial soul is a mutated gem that can launch spiritual attacks and also gives him extremely keen sixth senses. The moment the crack appeared, an ominous premonition surged through his heart. His pupils shrank suddenly, and seeing that it was too late to stop, he decisively chose to trust his instincts and retreated. Boom! Just as he expected, when the ball shattered, the 3 people were blinded by the darkness that shot out, and their originally bright pupils suddenly became extremely dark. What happened? Something passed by. Ah, why are you cutting me? In panic, the 3 of them accidentally attacked one of their own, and a black shadow took the opportunity to jump out from between them, pointing directly at the person who retreated. What are you 3 idiots doing? Get away quickly and don't attack randomly. The 2 onlookers yelled angrily. At the same time, all 3 soul rings lit up and charged towards Chang Xiao. In these short 2 breaths, frequent changes occurred, which made them realize that this boy was no ordinary person, and they had to go all out. Boy, go to hell. The first soul skill, soul binding touch. Close black lens bracket. Several shadow tentacles suddenly shot out from a person's feet, restraining his movements. Open black lens bracket, softness, close black lens bracket. Chang Xia endured the severe pain in his mind, grabbed the bird's tail and removed all the other person's strength, and then slapped his chest with a palm. However, the opponent also had quite a lot of combat experience. When he realized that his attack had changed direction for some reason, he vigilantly put his arm on his chest to block the palm. But what he never expected was that the boy in front of him changed his moves and turned his palms into claws. The sharp claws directly tore into pieces his protective barrier and tore off the muscles of his forearm. Even so, the pain still didn't make the man groan, but the next moment, the strange shape of his arm made his hair stand on end, and his trembling voice spread with a hint of fear. What is this? Kaka. Starting from the wound, the transparent crystal gradually climbed up the upper arm, and the entire arm began to gradually turn into crystal. Boom. The soul master, who was bound by the soul binding touch, violently broke the tentacles, and while charging towards him, he roared, "Hurry and chop off your hands." Chang Xia glanced at him, put his arm on his shoulder and climbed over him, chasing the retreating spiritual soul master. He must be killed. When the spiritual soul master saw this, he immediately felt like he was dying. His hunch was right, there was indeed something wrong with this kid. None of the 5 soul masters stopped him. You shouldn't have taken this mission. If the 5 soul masters couldn't stop him, he would definitely not be his opponent. He thought to himself that in this situation, it was absolutely impossible for him to get past the 5-person blockade. Being able to get past 5 people proves that he is capable of escaping from such a siege. What does it mean to be able to escape but not to escape? This guy is confident that he can solve everyone. The spiritual soul master's scalp was numb, and he threw 3 soul skills at Chang Xia desperately, but he did not stop, turned around, and ran away without looking back. Escape. Ever since he became a soul master, he had always been cautious and had only this idea, and it was this caution that allowed him to survive until now. Well, after 3 consecutive mental attacks, Chang Xia didn't even know where to hide. His mind was like a flood. He groaned and spit out a mouthful of blood. Then he knelt down softly, unable to support even the release of his martial soul. He held on to his body and looked at the figure that was getting smaller and smaller, a surge of anger rising from his heart. There was a sound of breaking wind behind him, the pursuers were approaching, and the target wanted to escape. And his spirit was on the verge of collapse. It seems that we are already in a dead end. His spirit became extremely fragile, his mind could no longer suppress the burning anger in his heart, his murderous intent exploded, and a frenzied impulse impacted his already fragile will. Kill them. It was as if a voice was roaring in my ears. Kakaka. Within the body, the king of destruction seemed to feel the anger of the outside world. The power of destruction became more and more violent. The cracks on the shadow ball began to expand faster. The yin-yang diagram below had no time to absorb it. The overflowing power of destruction rushed into Chang Xiao's limbs. Skeleton. Open black lens bracket, Dragon Emperor. Close black lens bracket. Chang Xiao's clear will was overwhelmed in an instant. He raised his head suddenly, his bloodshot eyes filled with stern color. A ferocious dragon appeared behind him, and black and red flames seemed to come from hell, wrapping around its body. Open black lens bracket, martial spirit possessed. Close black lens bracket. In an instant, an impact full of destructive will swept away the flames, and the people who were chasing him were immediately thrown away. Chang Xiao's whole body was covered with fine scales, and his left hand was hot. The transparent metacarpal bone seemed to be boiling, becoming sharper and more ferocious, and gradually began to merge with the scales. Boom! Chang Xiao's figure shot out like a sharp arrow, the ground beneath his feet shattered into rocks, and the air emitted bursts of sonic booms. Puff! The fiery left hand penetrated the spiritual soul master's chest from behind, and the circular wound burned with black and red hell flames. Kiki, you, fallen, K. The spiritual soul master coughed out blood. Before he could finish speaking, the flames suddenly burst out, burning them up without leaving even a trace of ashes. Chang Xiao turned his head, as if an eagle was gazing at a wolf, his eyes had turned into vertical pupils, full of madness. At this time, he was like a human-shaped demon dragon. As he swallowed, flames burned out of his mouth. All his clothes had been burned to the ground. His whole body was covered with fine scales, and a dragon's tail swung behind him. The destructive power directly shattered the ground, and wherever the tail swept, raging fire ignited. Run away quickly, he is a fallen soul master. Mousebeard had already recovered his eyesight, but when he saw Chang Xiao's appearance, he was so frightened that he sat down on the ground. Run away, you grandma! Someone yelled, and he swallowed, barely keeping calm. This kid is a twin martial soul. You can see clearly. Someone saw the clue at a glance. Boom! Chang Xiao took a step and the ground exploded. Boom, boom, boom. He is like a destruction machine, destroying everything in his path. Gulu, someone asked tremblingly. Really, are you really not going to run away? Chang Xiao's appearance was really terrifying. Suddenly, Chang Xiao fell to his knees, covering his chest, with a painful expression on his face. The power of destruction was destroying his body. In such a short period of time, he could no longer bear the possession of the power of destruction. Roar! Chang Xiao raised his head to the sky and roared, a roar unique to dragons that spread throughout the area. A fear originating from the depths of their hearts surged into their hearts, and several people froze instantly, as if a giant hammer had struck their minds. Plop, plop. The 5 people fell to the ground, feeling that their whole bodies were not in control. They could not help but tremble, and they could not exert any strength at all. Even their martial arts spirits could not be activated. This is the power that belongs to the Dragon Emperor. The bloodline power of high-level dragons, dragon fear. It can arouse the most primitive fear in the hearts of all living things. No distinction between friend and foe. Only higher-level creatures of the same level have the ability to resist. The possession of the martial spirit was released, and all the fine scales disappeared, replaced by cracks and bloodstains all over the body. The power of destruction is not something that ordinary human bodies can withstand. Chang Xiao paid a serious price. Hufufu, he panted, dripping with sweat and blood, and the crazy will to destroy faded from his mind like a tide. At this time, he was able to think calmly. Leave quickly, we can't stay. Chang Xiao was alert. With such a big movement, a patrol team in the inner city must have noticed it, and I'm afraid they will come soon. He raised his head, looked at the 5 stiff people, picked up a knife on the side, and killed them one after another under the horrified eyes of the 5 people. Then, he ran into the darkness without looking back. On top of the city wall, a figure was looking into the darkness in the distance. There was no light outside the city, he couldn't see his fingers, and he couldn't see any scenery at all. The man's eyebrows were golden, and his eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the darkness and see the extremely distant place. Suddenly, a crisp laughter was swept into the wind. Twin martial souls, the second soul ring in 1,000 years, is this your value? I like it very much. Well, Chang Xiao tried his best to open his tired eyelids, and a simple and tidy room came into view. Chang Xiao was stunned by the unfamiliar layout and furnishings of the house. Then he turned his head numbly and saw Yingling sleeping soundly beside his bed. Her slightly delicate cheeks were squeezed out of shape by her arms, making her look a little baby fat. Her slightly raised eyelashes outlined a beautiful arc, and her fair skin had a hint of red, as moist as a peach. Chang Xiao felt a different kind of touch in the heart of his right hand. It was soft and smooth, and he couldn't help but squeeze it. Where his eyes fell, he saw that Yingling was holding his hand and did not let go although he was asleep. The strange movement on the hand woke up the sleeping little girl. Yingling's delicate body trembled, and her curved eyelashes trembled twice, then she lifted them up with difficulty, revealing her slightly dazed eyes. Against the backdrop of the hook-like eyelashes, there is a hazy feeling. Yingling rubbed his eyes, as if he was still awake. Suddenly, his arms stopped, and he suddenly looked at Chang Xiao. His eyes widened, as if he didn't believe it, and he blinked. Chang Xiao was amused and responded with a wink. Ah, are you awake? Yingling exclaimed. Well, I just woke up. Yingling was a little excited. The next moment, she noticed that her hand was still holding Chang Xiao's, her fair cheeks were turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye, and her ears were burning. She quickly pulled out her hand, her eyes dodged, and she turned around and seemed to run away. He slipped out of the room and said, "I'll call Grandpa." Seeing her slightly embarrassed look, Chang Xia smiled. Not long after, several people filed in. In addition to Yi Renxin, Dugo and Dugo Yan also came in together. "Are you awake, brat? Tell me, who made you like this?" Dugo's face was gloomy. Although his personality was withdrawn and unpredictable, his nature did not mean that he was cold and heartless. When he saw Chang Xia unconscious in front of the door covered in blood, he almost couldn't help but rush out to kill someone in anger. He had just wanted to accept this boy as his disciple, but not even 2 days later, this boy was lying in front of his house covered in blood. What was he doing? Provocative. He simply didn't take this titled Douluo into consideration. "It's nothing. I offended someone in Yuexuan, and those nobles called some people to come and trouble me." Chang Xia shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, don't be upset. I killed all those people." HMPH. Well done. Dugo sneered, "If they still dare to cause trouble for you, just tell me. I want to see which family is so domineering. How do you feel? Are you feeling uncomfortable?" Yi Ren was much less angry and asked about Chang Xiao's physical condition without asking further. "Well, it's pretty good. It doesn't feel like anything serious." Chang Xia felt the state of his body and was full of energy. "Huh, that's good." Seeing the relieved look of several people, Chang Xia was a little confused and couldn't help asking, "What's wrong?" Dugo Yan rolled his eyes. "You've been in a coma for a month, what else happened?" Chang Xia was shocked. He was in a coma for a month. "You were seriously injured. Grandpa treated you for a long time. Your body was in a mess and your soul was also shocked. After you were cured, you never woke up." Yingling hugged Dugo Yan's arm and shrank behind her, timidly. Friendships between girls always come out of nowhere. In just 1 month, the relationship between the two has grown by leaps and bounds. Now they can talk about everything. They have communicated a lot in private about some boudoir talk. Chang Xia looked solemn as he recalled the whole process. It may be related to the destructive power of the Dragon Emperor's martial spirit. Although the physical injuries were healed by Juxin Haitang, the destructive power was beyond the body's endurance, so it took a certain amount of time to cultivate. It may also be caused by the attack of that spiritual soul master. If it weren't for the spiritual soul master, he would never have fallen into this situation when dealing with the 5 soul masters. There was no need to use the King of Destruction, and he could solve them all in a little time. But there was no way to defend against mental attacks, so he could only be beaten passively, which made him very embarrassed to deal with them. It was most likely the soul skills of the last 3 mental attacks that severely damaged his soul. Although he recovered under Yi Renxin's treatment, he still fell into a defensive slumber. "Okay, as long as you're fine. Get some rest these days and go to Yuexuan later. This old guy and I will go and support you then, so that those little don't come looking for you again." Yi Renxin snapped. He patted Chang Xia on the shoulder and comforted him. Chang Xia smiled and started chatting with everyone, and then asked Dugo Yan and Yingling about their campus life after the start of school. After a while, Chang Xia showed signs of fatigue, and everyone allowed him to leave. After everyone disappeared into the room, Chang Xiao's face suddenly darkened. "I thought that with his strength, there wouldn't be much danger in taking down a few noble thugs, but I didn't expect that he almost capsized." Only then did he realize that he still had many shortcomings. "We must find a way to make up for our mental power. Otherwise, if we encounter a soul master who is good at mental attacks in the future, we will suffer a big loss." Chang Xia pinched his fingers and pondered. Although he is a time traveler and his mental power is higher than that of ordinary people, he is obviously unable to withstand spiritual attack-type soul skills. "We must get the autumn water dew as soon as possible." This was the first way he thought of to enhance his mental power. The distraction control method should be an application of mental power. I wonder if it can strengthen mental power. Chang Xia squinted his eyes and thought of the Qibao glazed sect. But this path is obviously a bit difficult. In the original work, the reason why Ning Fengji is willing to teach Tang San the method of distraction control is hard to say because he does not mean to win over Tang San. If others ask for it, the 2-titled Douluo may I will scatter all your ashes directly. Think of a way to see if we can get it from Qian Runshui. Chang Xiao thought for a while and came up with a vague plan. Immortal grass, secret method, what else? Soul bone. Chang Xia thought of the teacher at Kangwei College, Xin Yan. He had a head soul bone that could launch mental attacks and pull people into dreams. If Tang San didn't have the purple demon eye, he would probably be hit by him. Road. Most head soul bones can enhance mental strength. Do I have to find a head soul bone first? Chang Xiao frowned. 100,000-year-old soul beast can be sacrificed and can choose the location of its soul bones independently, but he can't think of a soul beast that is good at spiritual power and is willing to sacrifice it to him. Xiao Wu. It's not feasible for the time being. Tang Hao probably stayed there and never left. There is no chance of tricking her into offering a sacrifice. Evil Eye Tyrant. Not in Douluo continent. We have to cross the ocean to find the Sun and Moon continent. Without the heart of the sea god, entering the sea might become a snack for sea soul beasts. Can I only choose one that is less than 100,000 years old? If you don't ask for 100,000 years, there are many choices. You can get one by killing Xin Yan. The Wuhan Palace also has at least 2 head soul bones that are over 10,000 years old. Maybe they can be traded with Qian Runshui. But if he asks her for soul bones now, he will definitely be at a disadvantage in their future relationship. Unless the relationship between the two gradually deepens in the future, then I can ask her for it. But I don't know how long it will be. Chang Xiao's face was uncertain. After a long time, he breathed a sigh of relief and got rid of the messy thoughts in his mind. Forget it, let's take care of the present first. Thinking too much won't do much good. Whether it's the distraction control method or the soul bone of the head, it can't be obtained in a short time. Wangchu and Chushuilu is the top priority. A few days later, Chang Xiao was already in full swing, and he couldn't wait to go to the ice and fire eyes to pluck out those fairy grasses. It's a pity that Dugo and Yi Renxin seemed to have forgotten about this problem a long time ago. They didn't even mention it, and Chang Xiao almost died of panic. Several times, Chang Xiao vaguely reminded the two of them, but they just waved their hands and told him not to worry. After waiting for a few days, Chang Xiao couldn't wait any longer, gritted his teeth and prepared to go to Dugo and ask him if the dignified titled Douluo planned to break his promise and get rich. However, when he opened the door, suddenly, the next room opened at this time, and Yingling rushed out with a happy face. But as soon as he went out, he bumped into Chang Xiao. Yingling hurriedly stopped, put his 2 lotus-rooted arms behind his back, spit out his pink and fragrant tongue, and then came to Chang Xiao's side with ladylike steps. Hey, Chang Xiao, you go out too. What's going on? Are you so happy? Chang Xiao touched Yingling's head. He found that after he woke up from his injury, he seemed to have grown taller. He was slightly shorter than Yingling before, but now he was taller than her. Yingling quickly took 2 steps back, wrinkled her nose, and said angrily, "You are not allowed to touch my head. You are not tall. I am older than you, so from now on I am the only one allowed to touch you." Huh, why are you so cheerful? Yingling had always been shy with everyone before and rarely spoke. Even if she was teased by him, she would just blush and hide behind Yi Renxin. How could she joke with him like this? Chang Xiao blinked. Could it be that he fell into a coma once and traveled through time again? Why do I feel that you have changed? Chang Xiao touched his forehead and felt that it was unlikely to travel through time again. No, there's no way. Yingling's eyes flashed with panic, and she quickly denied it. What happened this month? Chang Xiao wondered, could it be that Duguyan had instilled something into this little girl? This doesn't work. It's obviously his own shape, so how can he let Duguyan interfere? Still the shy little girl before and cute. Yes, that's right, I have broken through level 30. Yingling quickly changed the subject. Huh, really? Chang Xiao was a little surprised. He had never asked Yingling's rank before. However, in the original book, Yingling will fight Tang San in less than 2 years. At that time, she was just at level 35, and the training of auxiliary martial spirits was slower than that of other martial spirits. In less than 2 years, she would fight against Tang San. Grade 4 is about the same. Let's go find Grandpa Yi and the others now. Chang Xiao took Yingling's hand and hurried to find Yi Renxin. Yingling's ears were slightly red, but she was not as shy as before. There was a hint of sweetness in the corner of her mouth. She pursed her lips slightly to hold back the smile, and followed Chang Xiao step by step. Boom. Yi Renxin was reading in the study at this time, and there was a knock on the door. Come in. Yi Renxin put down the book and smiled when she saw the two people coming hand in hand. You don't need to be so restrained at home in the future, just come in directly. Okay, Grandpa Yi. Chang Xia did not overstep his authority, but brought Yingling to him. Yingling then let go of her teeth-marked lips, smiled and said, Grandpa, I'm level 30. Oh, Yi Renxin's eyes lit up and he stood up quickly, let's go. Find your Grandpa Dugo. After saying that, Yi Renxin took the two of them out and walked towards Duuo's mansion. Old guy, it's time to go. As soon as he stepped into Duuo's house, Yi Renxin shouted, his voice full of joy. Oh, Yingling is level 30. Dugo also looked surprised. Real. Dugo Yan hurriedly rushed up and pulled Yingling aside. The two girls began to whisper, pointing at Chang Xia not far away from time to time. Then Dugo Yan had a look on his face, while Yingling's face was full of embarrassment. Chang Xia was confused. Let's go. Go and help Yingling get the third soul ring now. Dugo grabbed his old friend and couldn't wait to get the third soul ring for his old friend's granddaughter. With his titled Douluo here, he would definitely be able to hunt down the most suitable soul beast for him. Chang Xia looked at the sky. Now. It's a bit late, isn't it? It's almost night, and when we get to the sunset forest, it won't be long before it gets dark. It doesn't matter, I have a house in the sunset forest. You can rest there for the night. Dugo waved his hand, and then joked, don't you want to see the ice and fire eyes? I've been looking at your monkey these days. Son, I'll take you there today. Chang Xiao's eyes fluctuated for a moment, and he finally wanted to go to the ice and fire eyes. Let's go. Clean up and hurry up. Ha 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 ha. His old friend's granddaughter's breakthrough seemed to make him happier than Dugo Yan's breakthrough. Dugo urged with a wave of his hand. A few people simply packed up and rushed to Sunset Forest together. Because he has the powerful aura of a titled Douluo, there are no blind soul beasts blocking his way along the way. Under the leadership of Dugo, everyone came to the foot of a mountain in the Sunset Forest. The mountain wall was steep, but on the mountainside, there was a cave. This was Dugo's other house. A few people visited Dugo's beppu. The layout was relatively simple, but not shabby. But Chang Xia obviously had no intention of focusing on this other house and was a little absent-minded. Dugo and Yi Renxin looked at each other. They both saw Chang Xiao's thoughts, and they were a little funny. It seems that this kid is not always so calm. Okay, that's it for the tour. Let's go and take you to see the ice and fire eyes. Following the path up to the top of the mountain, everyone saw a valley. Thick white fog lingered over the valley, making it difficult for people to see the true appearance of the valley. A pungent smell of sulfur rushed into the nose. Walk. Dugo held up Dugo Yan with one hand and Chang Xia with the other hand and jumped down the valley, while Yi Renxin picked up his granddaughter Yingling and followed quickly. After a few people landed, a strange spring appeared in front of them. The area of the spring is not large, it is oval in shape, but it is divided into two parts, half vermilion, half milky white, with a clear middle. They do not infringe on each other and always stay on one side. At the intersection, a faint mist rises, constantly pouring into the white mist above. Ice and fire eyes. Chang Xiao's pupils couldn't help but tremble. Even though he had been prepared, he was still shocked by the gorgeous scene in front of him. So beautiful. Yingling's eyes were blurry. Dugo Yan remained silent, but the shock on her face also told the unrest in her heart. You old guy, you are really lucky. You have encountered such a strange place. No wonder it can suppress the toxins in your body. Yi Renxin's eyes were complicated. Ha 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 ha, envy me. Chang Xia was startled, came to his senses, walked 2 steps quickly, came to the spring, and started looking for the fairy grass. Hey, brat, don't get too close. A little bit of the spring water will kill you. Dugo reminded. I know. Chang Xia waved his hand without looking back. Only then did Dugo remember that this boy probably knew more about spring water than he did, so there was no need to worry about him. Thinking of this, Dugo ignored this kid and started bragging to his old friends. Looking through the autumn dew, looking through the autumn dew. Chang Xia immersed himself in searching for the fairy grass. After searching for it, Chang Xia suddenly raised his head and his face turned pale. It's over. What does this thing look like? Chang Xiao's face turned pale. He had been thinking about it for so long, but he had forgotten a very serious problem. There was no ghost fairy grass in his previous life. He doesn't know him at all. No way. The duck that hit the mouth flew away. Chang Xiao almost didn't curse. Can I just find someone else? Does anyone know the grass jelly? In my memory, it seems that only 3 people know Shinsao. Ju Duuo Yu Guan. Not good. If the people from Wuhan Palace are really coming, at most one of these fairy grasses will fall into his hands, and the rest will probably be taken away by Wuhan Palace. Besides, Yu Guan doesn't get along well with Dugo. If he really brings her to Dugo's lair, Chang Xiao will probably make Dugo hate him to death. Yang Wudi. He is in Star Luo. There is no way he can go to Star Luo Empire, right? The Zhu family's home base. He has no problem with his mind. Tang San. Chang Xiao's face turned dark. Why did he run around and run into Tang San again? He spent so much effort just to cut off Hu, and finally told him that it was all in vain. With Tang San's temperament, I'm afraid he would only be given one, and the rest would be taken away by himself. Considering that in the past 5 years, he always danced back and forth on Xiao Wu's red line because of some bad taste. I'm afraid the fairy grass is a bit unreliable, but the level of 9th grade purple G is possible. Could it be that he could only live by eating a piece of fairy grass? Bang bang. Wait, that's the wrong idea. Chang Xiao patted his cheeks with both hands to stay calm. Calm down, think differently. It's not that the cake cannot be divided, but everyone wants to occupy the biggest piece of cake, and Chang Xiao is no exception. Therefore, we must seize the initiative as much as possible and cannot hand over the power to cut the cake. In other words, you cannot expose them all to others at once. Start with the ones you recognize best first. If you don't know them, then try to find a way to get in touch with the 3 of them. Chang Xiao can make a judgment based on only a few descriptors and the names of the grass jelly in the original work. His memory of the characteristics of the various jelly grasses is not very deep. He can only remember some, but cannot recall them all. First of all, it's best to recognize the 8-pointed black ice grass. I'm afraid there is no other fairy grass that is more recognizable than this. No fairy grass has 8 corners, and it can be regarded as the only one of Scorpion Daddy. Secondly, based on the direction, the fiery red thing like cabbage at the center of the blazing yang spring is probably the fiery apricot jiaoshu. There are no other herbs within 10 meters of it. It is so overbearing that there is no other possibility. The strange velvet blue chrysanthemum should look like a chrysanthemum, but there are several chrysanthemum-like ones here, so it's hard to judge. It would be nice if we could take a look at Yu Guan's martial spirit. Well, it's not that Qirong Babel has no chance. 8-petal fairy orchid. The original work didn't even describe its appearance. Judging from the name, it looks like an orchid. There are 8 leaves. Tisk, I'm a little unsure. If I make a mistake, I might kill someone. After all, fairy grass is not an ordinary medicinal herb. If you eat it randomly, you will have problems. Phoenix coxcomb. This one is easy to recognize, it looks like a coxcomb, and there is no other one. Kiluo tulip. If you look for tulips according to their appearance, you can find 3 tulips. How can you tell them apart? The acacia heartbroken red growing on the stone is also very distinctive. You should be able to find it if you look carefully at the rhizome. However, based on this judgment alone, if there is a second strain, it may be difficult to distinguish. Narcissus jade muscles and bones. Narcissus. There are several Ganoderma lucidum strains, but there is only one purple one. I think it is the 9th grade purple Ganoderma. And those things that look like Cordyceps sinensis must be snow silkworms. Where is the Yushang Kiluo immortal product? It's not easy to find based on the name alone, but based on its invulnerability, you should be able to find it after spending a few months catching some soft bone rabbits and trying it. As for Wangchuan autumn water dew, Xinglo lingju, snow-colored swan kiss, Hunyuan immortal grass, etc., their characteristics are not obvious and difficult to judge. While earth dragon golden melon is buried underground and cannot be found, there is black jade divine bamboo. How to eat it? Are you chewing bamboo like a giant panda? After all calculations, the only things that can be accurately judged, or that can be distinguished after taking a while, are the 8 aniseed ice grass, the fierce apricot, the strange antler, the phoenix coxcomb, and the fragrant Kiluo fairy. Chang Xia pinched his fingers. Forget it. And what I need to use are the star anise ice grass, fiery apricot jiaoshu, yushang Kiluo immortal product, and Wangchuan autumn water dew. I can find 3 of the 4 plants. It is the Wangchuan autumn water dew that is a bit troublesome. He only remembered that this fairy grass only needs dew. If it loses dew, the whole herb will wither. Is it possible to be like a bee, licking every flower? Chang Xiao's face wrinkled together, not to mention whether this behavior was obscene or not. What if he tasted a poisonous flower? Haha, let's get the Yushang Kiluo immortal product first. Let's get a few of the fairy grasses that we can recognize first. Looking through Chushwilu, I can't run away anyway, so it's not completely impossible. You brat, it's time to go up. While Chang Xia was thinking, Dugo shouted from a distance. Chang Xia came back to his senses, quickly organized his words, walked over, and said to Dugo, Your Majesty, Dugo, can I pick a few herbs here? Huh, it's okay, but do you recognize it? There are some herbs here that I don't even recognize, and some herbs are highly poisonous. Don't mess around, Dugo warned. Of course, I only pick the ones I know. There will be no problem. Chang Xia assured. When I know them all, I will be bald. Dugo nodded, waved his hand and said, Okay, go ahead and pick it. I may have to look for it for a while. Chang Xia looked at the sky. How about you go up first? Just pick me up before sunset. Dugo had no doubts. He looked up at the position of the sun and found that there was still some time. He was too lazy to wait for him here, so he nodded and said, Be careful, we are going up first. We will come down to pick you up later. After that, the group of people wanted to leave, but before they left, Dugo warned him uneasily, Don't ever touch that ice and fire eye, and don't even get close to it. If you touch that thing, you will die. Quote. New. After a few people left the valley, Chang Xia took a deep breath and came to the intersection of the blazing Yangchang and the extremely cold Yingquan. He took out a dagger and the jade pieces that Chang Xia had sharpened these days. The aniseed ice grass and the fiery apricot are described in great detail in the original work, so Chang Xiao's memory is quite profound. Among them, the star anise ice grass can only be picked using metal, while the fire apricot jiaoshu is completely different and must be picked using jade products. With a jade piece in one hand and a dagger in the other, Chang Xia used his soul power, and the strength of Tai Chi showed through his fingertips. He threw out his hands, and the jade piece and the dagger flew out at the same time, hitting the fairy grass on both sides of the ice and fire eyes. The sound of breaking wind sounded. The rhizomes of the 2 fairy grasses broke at the sound. Chang Xia raised his head and glanced at the top of the valley. Thick fog was rolling in. He could only see the sun like a red disk hanging on the top of the mountain. As for other scenes, it was blocked by the thick fog. If he stood on the top of the mountain, it would be there is no bottom in sight. Come out and get them for me. Chang Xia summoned the Shadow Soul Beast, a Heartbreaker Bee, and a Blazing Spirit Kite, and asked them to get the fairy grass respectively. The Heartbreaker Bee and the Blazing Kite picked up 2 fairy grasses and flew far before one turned into an ice sculpture and fell to the ground in pieces, while the other turned into ashes. Fortunately, Chang Xia deliberately controlled the 2 Shadow Soul Beasts to fly around the spring, otherwise it would be the end of them if they fell into the spring. The Shadow Soul Beast resurrected again and repeated the previous operation. Dying over and over again, moving in small sections, and each resurrection consumes Chang Xiao's soul power. The dwindling soul power makes a thin layer of sweat break out on Chang Xiao's forehead. Wouldn't that be enough? Chang Xia was extremely worried. Finally, when most of Chang Xiao's soul power was consumed, 2 immortal grasses were sent to the intersection of the blazing Yangchang and the extremely cold Yingquan. The moment the 2 jelly grasses approached, the hot and extremely cold auras of the jelly grasses suddenly disappeared. The star anise ice grass was shrouded in a faint red light, while the fiery apricot jiao was covered with a thin layer of white mist. It's now. The disappearance of the 2 breaths is only temporary. Within 10 breaths, this situation will disappear completely. Chang Xia immediately rushed forward, picked up the 2 immortal grasses, and stuffed them into his mouth at the same time. The 2 fairy grasses melted in his mouth and went down his throat. In an instant, Chang Xia felt two forces entangled in his lower abdomen, making him feel a sense of relief. It produces fluid under the tongue and overflows with fragrance. This feeling was extremely wonderful, making him feel like he was in the clouds. But after 3 breaths, this wonderful feeling disappeared. Chang Xiao's skin turned icy blue in the blink of an eye, and the next moment, it turned red as if it had been cooked. The two colors are constantly alternating, and between the alternations, the two feelings of hot and extreme cold appear in cycles, making Chang Xiao feel like he is in the magma of hell, and suddenly in the snow of the far north. Two completely opposite pains tortured Chang Xiao alternately, giving him the urge to die. Plop! Chang Xiao gritted his teeth and plunged into the eyes of Bingwo Liangyi. Boom! The clothes on Chang Xiao's body were instantly destroyed by the two forces of cold and hot, leaving nothing left. Plunging into the spring water, the pain was only slightly relieved. As the power of the medicine exploded, the pain began to become more and more intense. Chang Xiao's will was like a steel wire, being bent back and forth by two forces, one hot and one cold, as if it was about to break and collapse. Chang Xiao's consciousness gradually began to blur and he fell into a coma. As time went by, the sun quickly hid behind the mountains and the sky darkened. Whoosh! The sound of breaking wind resounded in the quiet valley, and Yi Renxin returned to the valley to take Chang Xiao back. Chang Xiao, it's time to go, Yi Renxin shouted. However, Chang Xiao's response did not ring out in the valley. Yi Renxin's heart skipped a beat, his face became more solemn, and he shouted again, Chang Xiao. No one responded. Yi Renxin's expression changed greatly, and he quickly searched the valley. However, the valley was so big that it didn't take him long to search the entire valley, but Chang Xiao was nowhere to be found. No way! A bad premonition arose in his heart. Yi Renxin turned his head and looked at the Bingwo Liangyan with his pupils shrinking suddenly. Come on, Ling Ling, Yan Yan, don't wait for that brat, let's eat first. This brat has a lot to do, don't wait for him. Ha ha ha. In the cave, Dugo was greeting two girls to eat. Although this mansion is simple, it has everything it needs. In order to suppress the toxins in his body, Dugo has lived here every day over the years. Whenever he has time, he goes to practice the ice and fire eyes, so he has no shortage of daily necessities. Dugu Yan nodded, picked up the bowl and chopsticks, and prepared to eat. But Yi Lingling shook her head in a very ladylike manner. You won't eat if he doesn't come, right? What's so good about that little liar? Dugu Yan rolled his eyes. No way, I'm waiting for Grandpa. Yi Lingling's pretty face turned red and she argued weakly. At this moment, Yi Renxin appeared at the entrance of the cave. Yi Lingling looked quickly, but did not see the figure. He was a little confused, but then he saw the solemn expression on his grandfather's face that seemed to drip out of water, and he was stunned. Problem occurs. Yi Renxin's words made the three of them stand up suddenly. The bowls and chopsticks slipped from the table and fell to the ground, breaking into pieces, but no one paid attention. What's going on? The smile on Dugo's face faded, and his expression became serious. Chang Xiao is missing. What? Dugo was shocked and thought of a possibility. Yi Lingling's delicate body trembled, and her crimson lips were pressed tightly by her, turning slightly white. When Dugu Yan heard this, he remembered that the boy was very naughty, so he curled his lips and said, Grandpa Yi, don't worry about that boy. That little liar is like a ghost, maybe he has climbed up long ago. The mountain wall is so steep that most people can't climb it. Even if he climbs up, where can he go if he doesn't come back here? The surroundings are full of soul beasts that are over 1,000 years old. If you want to go out alone, you are looking for death. Dugo's mouth twitched. Maybe. At the end of the sentence, Dugo felt a little numb and did not dare to say any more. Walk. A gust of wind blew, and the two of them took Dugu Yan and Yi Lingling out of the cave and quickly came to the valley. At this time, the valley was extremely quiet, and there was not even a single person. Dugo wanted to search in the valley, but Yi Renxin said solemnly, no need to search, I have searched several times. Dugo paused and came to the Bingwo Liangyi. He looked at the calm water. His lips were slightly dry. He opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound. Yi Renxin and the other three followed him closely, and at the same time released their martial souls. A warm soul power enveloped Dugu Yan and Yi Lingling. You're not going to fall in here, are you? Dugo Yan took 2 steps forward and looked into the spring with his neck raised. But before she could get close, Dugo immediately pulled her back and shouted angrily, "Be careful. Are you looking for death? You fell in, Grandpa, I can't even save you." Yi Renxin smiled bitterly. He could feel the terror of the ice and fire eyes, but at this time he was still holding on to a sense of luck. Is it really hopeless to fall in? Dugo glanced at him, tore off a piece of his sleeve robe, threw it into the yang spring, and was instantly burned to ashes. He also took out a few poisons and herbs from the Rui treasure bag, and threw them into the yin and yang springs respectively. Almost in an instant, several objects were either frozen into ice cubes and sank to the bottom, or burned to ashes. Dugo Yan's face instantly turned pale, and he took 2 steps back in panic, as if the edge of the spring was like a cliff, for fear of accidentally falling in. It wasn't until Dugo's demonstration that a few people truly had an intuitive understanding of the ice and fire eyes. No, Yingling was stunned, his voice was too low to be heard. Yi Renxin took a deep breath, suppressed the depression and discomfort in her heart, touched her granddaughter's head, and said in a solemn voice, "Go and look outside first, maybe he really climbed up." Dugo didn't refute. This was also his last hope. He didn't want to undermine the confidence of a few people. It was better to give them some illusory hope than no hope at all. "Let's go look for it first." Dugo sighed. A few people left, and calm returned to the valley again. The night was silent, and no one came until the sun rose. It was sunset again, and it was approaching dusk. Dugo and the others were sitting in Beppu. The atmosphere was so solemn that it was hard to breathe. Yingling was lying on the table listlessly, her eyes were red. She didn't cry, but her eyes were moist from holding in her eyes. Dugo Yan was in a state of languor and was silent for a long time. "Oh, I told this kid not to come close, don't come close. Why didn't he listen?" Dugo looked complicated and sighed, his words filled with anger and pity. Yingling rubbed his red eyes and forced an ugly smile. "Grandpa Dugo, it's only been a day, maybe he will come back anytime." Everyone was silent, this possibility was too small. The boy either fell into the spring or climbed up and got out, but there were all soul beasts that were over 1,000 years old blocking his way. No matter which one, no trace has been found so far, and the possibility of survival is too low. Yi Renxin felt sad and felt guilty when he saw his granddaughter in pain. It would have been better if they hadn't thrown the child down before. It was also because the child usually behaved too maturely. Therefore, when they were asked to let them come up first, they were very relieved. How could they have imagined that such a thing would happen? Yi Renxin opened her mouth, ready to comfort her, but when the words came to her lips, she found that all her words were in vain. He could only sigh and remain silent. Boom! While several people were silent, suddenly, the entire mountain began to shake violently. All items in the cave began to shake, and fragile items smashed into pieces on the ground. "The earth dragon turns over. Let's go." Several people were shocked, and the 2 old men quickly grabbed their granddaughters and rushed out of the cave, running far away. "Huh, that's not right." Dugo stopped and noticed that there was no vibration under his feet. Yi Renxin looked back at the shaking mountain. "That's it. Only the mountain was shaking. Could it be that?" The 2 of them looked at each other and said in unison, "Ice and fire eyes." Not long after, the shaking of the mountain stopped. "Let's go. Go take a look." Several people quickly came to the top of the mountain, jumped into the valley, and came to the vicinity of the ice and fire eyes again. It was still so calm, but something seemed different. The Yangchang is getting hotter and the Yingquan is getting colder. Dugo and Yi Renxin approached the spring cautiously, fearing that something might happen suddenly. Gulu gulu. In an instant, both Yangchang and Yingquan were boiling suddenly and rolling continuously. Retreat. The 2 men's eyes suddenly opened wide, and they were shocked. They took their granddaughter and retreated, away from the entire spring. They stood very far away, staring at the rolling water. Puff! Suddenly, the rolling spring water calmed down, leaving the 4 of them confused. What's going on? Several people looked at each other. Is this the end? Swish! Just when a few people frowned and wondered, suddenly, a naked figure broke through the calm water surface again and came out. Immediately, a hearty laughter resounded throughout the valley. "Ha ha ha, cool. Chang Xiao's consciousness was like a small boat, drifting in the violent storm. The roaring cold waves just slapped him on the left, and the burning hurricane slapped him on the right. The two forces kept destroying Chang Xiao's consciousness, but he gritted his teeth and held on to the last trace of clarity, which means, let him blow east, west, north, south, and I will remain unmoved. His consciousness was erratic, but he never extinguished the last remaining flame. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly, Chang Xiao's consciousness seemed to travel through time and space. The never-ending darkness around him faded away, and a dazzling light enveloped him. When his vision returned, Chang Xiao saw two giant dragons hovering in the sky. The terrifying power rendered the sky red and blue, intertwined with heat and cold. All creatures in the world were under the influence of these two forces. Under the devastation, it turned into ice sculptures and ashes. Boom! A blood-red figure stood in the sky. His whole body was filled with evil aura. Behind him were 9 halos of light that were completely different from the soul rings. If you counted them carefully, there were actually 9 of them. He held a bloody giant sword that was more than 2 meters long. The long and thick sword was densely covered with dark gold earth demon patterns, and it was full of extremely fierce killing aura. Looking carefully, the figure does not seem to be in this world, as if it is in the interlayer of space. But that power is still frightening. The blood-red figure gently waved the long sword, and the space was shattered wherever the sword edge passed. Going down to the realm privately and violating the laws of the divine realm, you will be judged, death. The blood-red figure said coldly. Roar, you killed my king and tried to imprison us. Do we, the dragon clan, have to sit back and wait for death? A giant dragon roared. Don't say any more, just fight if you want. The ice-blue dragon spoke human words. After saying that, the 2 giant dragons roared and rushed towards the man. Flames swept across the space. Under the extremely hot flames, the space showed signs of distortion. The ice was like a bone-scraping knife, tearing the air and sending bursts of sound. Sonic boom. The momentum caused by the 2 giant dragons turned everything within thousands of miles into ruins, which was very frightening. However, facing these 2 giant dragons, Yingling remained unmoved. His eyes were indifferent. He raised the 2-meter giant sword, and then suddenly swung it down. Boom! The blood-red sword light burst out from the long sword, directly tearing apart the space, reaching this world, and struck the 2 giant dragons fiercely. Roar! The 2 giant dragons howled, but the hard dragon scales were like tissue paper, easily torn apart by the sword light in an instant. The sword light penetrated the 2 dragon bodies and directly flattened the towering mountain peak. Above the sword light, there seemed to be a crazy will to kill, constantly invading the vitality of the 2. In the furious dragon eyes, the vitality quickly dissipated, and the unwilling dragon roar echoed in the world. Boom! The 2 giant dragons fell rapidly and hit the flattened top of the mountain. The mountain was devastated again and collapsed, finally forming the shape of a valley with bulges on all sides and a depression in the middle. The space torn apart by the sword light slowly closed. In the gap in the space, the blood-red evil shadow stared coldly at the 2 dragon corpses. Chang Xiao's consciousness was floating in this space like a mayfly, passively watching this scene without any thought. The torn space finally healed. Suddenly, in the space crack, the blood-red figure's eyes filled with killing intent turned slightly, and fell on the mayfly just before the space closed. The cold murderous intention seemed to be able to penetrate time and space. Chang Xiao's originally instinctive consciousness was suddenly aroused, and the rage of destruction instantly occupied his consciousness, as if he was provoked by the will to kill. Roar! There was another dragon roar, but this dragon roar was more terrifying and majestic than the previous 2 dragons, sending a warning to the blood-red figure outside the crack. However, as the crack closed, the figure completely disappeared into the space, and the sky became calm again. Only in the valley, 2 dragon corpses were sleeping hugging each other, with fire and ice occupying one side of the valley respectively. As the figure in the sky disappeared, the will to destroy gradually calmed down. Chang Xiao woke up, but suddenly found that the entire space had changed its appearance, leaving only a blank white. And he himself turned into a giant dragon. The aura of destruction raged in this vast white space, and the black and red flames burned blazingly, seeming to break through the cage. Roar! Ho ho ho! The voices of the 2 giant dragons resounded in the space, and there was not much intelligence, only pure instinct. Chang Xia lowered his dragon head and discovered that the two giant dragons that had been killed before were now much shorter than him, only 1/3 of his height. As they roared, they were like young dragons that were waiting for food, begging for food from their parents, but there was a strong sense of rejection in the dragon's roar, as if they did not welcome his arrival. The whole picture is quite funny. As if being provoked, Chang Xia felt a surge of anger in his heart for some unknown reason, and the power of destruction swept away, colliding with the ice and fire. Boom! Almost instantly, the ice and fire were destroyed. Under the power of destruction, the two giant dragons couldn't even make a wailing sound. Instead, they exploded and turned into dots of starlight. They were sucked by Chang Xia whale and were sucked by the little whale. It is absorbed into the body. In an instant, Chang Xia felt a little more strength in his body. Before Chang Xia could appreciate it, the vast white space was like broken glass, shattering into pieces and suddenly collapsing. Chang Xia seemed to have been kicked by something, and immediately his body twitched. He suddenly opened his eyes and found himself immersed in red and blue spring water. This is the Eye of Ice and Fire. Chang Xia was at a loss for a moment, then regained his clarity, recovered from the mysterious state just now, and hurriedly floated towards the water. After breaking the surface of the water and coming into contact with the air again, Chang Xia felt a burst of relief. The air made him feel like he woke up from the chaos in an instant, and he laughed loudly, ha ha ha, it feels so good. Chang Xia, voices with different tones, almost in unison, echoed throughout the valley in astonishment. Chang Xia was stunned and looked over, only to see 4 people staring at him in the water. Only then did he realize that he might have stayed in the valley for too long. You're here, I'll come up right now. Chang Xia smiled awkwardly, showing a trace of apology, and swam towards the shore quickly. You. Dugo Yan couldn't believe her eyes, pointed at Chang Xia and said, why aren't you dead? Chang Xia rolled his eyes, you're just dead. But this spring water. Dugo Yan wanted to say something else. But Dugo waved his hand to stop her and said, you come up first and then talk. Chang Xia put his hands on the shore, lifted himself up, and climbed onto the shore. However, before he could say anything, 2 high-pitched screams echoed in the valley and lingered for a long time. Chapter 71. Dugo Yan screamed, covered his eyes, turned his back quickly, and cursed angrily, You are a pervert. Yingling covered her eyes with her hands, but there was some light leaking between her fingers. Her cheeks were red, but she did not turn around. Turn around here. Dugo Yan caught a glimpse of Yingling beside him, who was still dazed, and immediately turned her over angrily. Only then did Chang Xia notice that he was completely naked, without any covering at all. He quickly covered his important parts in embarrassment and turned sideways. Put it on. Yi Renxin took out a piece of clothing from the soul guide and put it on Chang Xia. Chang Xia put on his clothes and then breathed a sigh of relief. Okay. Dugo Yan didn't dare to turn around, and quietly glanced behind him. Seeing that Chang Xia was dressed neatly, he breathed a sigh of relief, turned around, gritted his teeth and spat, little hooligan. Yingling blushed and turned around without saying anything. Her eyes were timid, but there was a sense of happiness hidden in them. Feeling the strange looks in their eyes, Chang Xia blushed a little despite his psychological quality. What's going on? Where have you been these past few days? Dugo frowned and asked, also, why did you come out of the Eyes of Ice and Fire? Well, I ate 2 medicinal herbs, which can resist the erosion of the ice and fire eyes. Chang Xia made an excuse, I just wanted to go down and have a look and verify the legend. There is this kind of medicinal herb. Where is it? Dugo's eyes flashed with light. If he can take it, he can stay here for a long time in the future. Even if his old friend passes away, he no longer has to worry about the toxins in his body. Just those 2. Chang Xia pointed to the location of the fiery apricot jiaoshu and the star anise ice grass. Can those 2 plants be eaten? Dugo looked strange. Although he didn't recognize most of the herbs here, he had also explored them separately. Those 2 herbs contained top-notch cold poison and fire poison. Even with his soul power, he couldn't stay near those 2 herbs for too long. He had never dared to try this kind of herb with unknown medicinal properties. It's edible. Chang Xia was worried that the old guy would draw his own blood, so he said, but you definitely can't eat it. If you take these 2 herbs, the poisonous power in your body will be dissipated. Hearing this, Dugo suddenly looked disappointed. Then these 2 herbs can only let you swim in the water. Dugo raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Chang Xia was speechless. What does only mean? The ice and fire eyes can be said to be the strongest fire and the strongest ice on the continent. Chang Xia explained patiently, because the concept of extreme had not yet appeared at this time, so he used the word strongest substitute. That is to say, in the future, all fire attribute attacks and ice attribute attacks will cause almost minimal damage to my attributes. This is the so-called immunity to ice and fire. When everyone heard this, they were suddenly a little stunned. Dugo and Yingling looked at each other and saw a hint of shock in each other's eyes. Only when they reach their height can they know how powerful this ability is. If this kid could become a titled Douluo and use his soul power at will, he would be able to suppress the fire and ice soul masters with a single shot of soul power. Dugo didn't have that vision, but she instantly thought of several opponents. Ice and fire free. Doesn't that mean that the attacks from Blazing Fire Academy and Tianshui Academy are ineffective against the boy? Dugo was immediately excited and said with stern eyes, Chang Xia, come to our academy. Chang Xia couldn't laugh or cry and shook his head in refusal. But Dugo was eager to give it a try and obviously had no intention of giving up easily. Okay, if something happens next time, please tell us. Yi Ren said reproachfully, let us worry a lot. Look at this girl Yingling, her eyes are red from crying. Grandpa, Yingling scolded, who is crying? I didn't cry, I just had sand in my eyes. No, I don't feel comfortable. The voice gradually weakened. Facing Chang Xiao's amusing gaze, Yingling dodged his eyes, blushed and pulled Dugo in front of him, blocking himself, and buried his face on Dugo shoulder. His voice was as thin as a mosquito or fly. Wen. I'm just a little worried, I really didn't cry. Only Dugo, who was nearest, heard that voice, and he rolled his eyes with hatred, it's worthless. Ha 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 ha. Everyone laughed, and Yingling stamped her feet anxiously, hiding behind Dugo and not daring to show her head. Let's go, let's go. Have a good night's rest tonight and help Yingling get the soul ring tomorrow. Chang Xia raised his feet and was about to leave with a few people, but suddenly he stopped and remembered something. Ju Duuo Yugon's martial spirit was the Qirong Tianju. He had planned to find a chance to observe Ju Duuluo's martial spirit before. Then confirm the strange velvet Tongtianju. But after seeing Dugo, he realized that the person who was most familiar with Yugon's martial arts spirit was right in front of him. Dugo and Yuguan have been fighting for many years, and they are both old rivals. It is impossible for Dugo not to know Qirong Tongtianju. Chang Xiao's eyes brightened slightly, and he pointed at a chrysanthemum-shaped fairy grass and asked, Your Majesty, that chrysanthemum is the chrysanthemum engraved on the Wuhan order. When I was looking for the herb just now, it seemed like it. He did not mention Yuguan so as not to offend Dugo. It's not this one. Dugo glanced at it, shook his head, and pointed to another chrysanthemum-shaped herb with a hint of disgust, that one is it. Chang Xia looked along the direction he pointed, and a huge chrysanthemum came into view. The chrysanthemum was a magnificent purple color, and every petal looked fluffy. The stamens in the center were more than half a foot higher than the petals. The top of it shines with a faint golden light. Chang Xia nodded and took it to heart. He is not in a hurry to take them away now. After all, he does not have a treasure bag to keep these plants active for a long time. It would not be too late to get a soul guide similar to the Rui treasure bag in the future and take it away. If he couldn't find it, then he could only focus on the Rui treasure bag on Dugo's waist. Several people came out of the valley, and before leaving, Chang Xia took a deep look at Bingwo Liangyan. In fact, he had a more important gain, which he did not tell them. It was no accident that he could see the scene of the 2 dragon kings falling. After all, Tang San had never seen it before. He guessed that it was probably his dragon emperor martial spirit that inspired the sleeping dragon king's remnant soul. Although the dragon emperor has a high status, he does not have much blood connection with the dragon clan in this world. Naturally, the remaining souls with only instincts will feel violated and activated by it. But the two are not absolutely opposite. Although the origins of their bloodline are different, they both belong to the dragon clan, so communication between the two parties is not impossible, not to mention that the Dragon Emperor is higher than the two Dragon Kings. If he could influence the two remnant souls of the Dragon King who only had their instincts, and forge a dragon body for him, maybe he would be able to adapt to the Dragon King's power as soon as possible. What's more, directly taking away the origins of the two Dragon Kings. Thinking of this, Chang Xiao's eyes sparkled in the night. Tiando City, Prince's Mansion. Shui Qinghe sat on a chair, rested his forehead on his hands, closed his eyes and took a nap. In the dark night, the crickets kept making an annoying noise. A guard came in from outside and saluted Shui Qinghe. "Your Highness, I found it." Shui Qinghe opened his eyes, sat upright, waved and said, "Bring it here, let me take a look." Shui Qinghe took the information handed over by the guard. After reading it, the corners of his mouth could not help but turn up slightly. "Businessman. Whale oil. Haha, that's interesting. You also borrowed a large amount of money. Are you in a financial crisis?" Chang Xiao's information cannot be hidden from anyone at all. Even the nobles can find out, let alone Shui Qinghe, who is the prince. As long as Shui Qinghe thought about it, he could even investigate more thoroughly than those nobles. Putting away the information, Shui Qinghe tapped his fingers on the table and thought deeply. After a long time, he looked at the guard standing aside and said, "Pass my decree to let the Chang family provide whale oil to the royal family in the future. In addition, send a sum of money and say it is my reward." "Yes." The guard bowed and prepared to retreat. "Wait a minute." Shui Qinghe stopped him. "I'm about to break through. I will start retreat tonight. No matter who comes these days, please don't disturb me." "Yes, my subordinates know. Get down." After the guards retreated, Shui Qinghe came to the window and leaned against the railing to look at the moon. Under the cold white moonlight, his handsome face looked a little feminine. "The more unwilling you are, the more favor I have to offer you. If you don't accept it, I don't believe your family won't accept it." "Oh, I want to see how you refuse now." Shui Qinghe's eyes flickered and he murmured in his heart, "No one can refuse me yet." Shui Qinghe turned around, looked at the corner hidden in the darkness, and said, "Let's go. Let's go to the sunset forest to meet him." "Yes, young master." The two of them touched their chests and saluted. After closing the doors and windows, the three of them quietly left the house under the cover of night and ran into the darkness. Shui Qinghe's eyebrows flashed and she transformed into a woman. She has more than one identity. Since Shui Qinghe's identity makes it difficult to control him, then she should use a two-pronged approach, one to show kindness and the other to make friends. One is in the light and the other is in the dark. She didn't believe that with her methods, she couldn't control a young man. The next day, Chang Xia and others left Dugubo's residence, stepped out of the poisonous miasma, and prepared to obtain the soul ring for Yingling. With Dugo by their side, the few of them were strolling leisurely, relaxed and contented, not at all as vigilant as others, nor worried about any danger. Several people were walking and chatting. "Have you thought about getting any soul rings for Yingling?" Dugo asked. "Of course. The first 3 spirit rings of Jukes and Begonia have been studied by my ancestors of the Yi family to find the best combination." Yi Renxin touched his beard and said with a smile, "What about the next few links? Do you have any plans?" Dugo glanced at the two girls who were whispering. Yi Renxin sighed after hearing this. He knew that his old friend wanted to arrange a way out for his granddaughter after his death. It's hard for him too. "How can we be sure about the next few soul rings?" Yi Renxin shook his head. "The older the years, the rarer the number. It will take a lot of time to search for it. The improvement of the auxiliary system is slow, so naturally there is not so much time to spend. When it comes to searching for soul beasts, I will hunt them when I find the right one." "That's right, especially soul beasts suitable for healing type like Jukes and Haitang or even rarer." Dugo sighed a little. Therapy department. Chang Xia suddenly thought of 2 soul beasts that were top-notch in healing. "Grandpa Yi, Senior Dugo, have you two heard of Blue Silver King?" "Blue Silver King? It should be Blue Silver Grass, right?" Yi Renxin was a little confused. He had never heard of Blue Silver King. This period is not like the Blue Silver Emperor that was known to the world 10,000 years later. Nowadays, almost everyone's understanding of Blue Silver Grass is only at a very superficial stage. Only those who witnessed the Tang Hao incident may be able to know a thing or two. Well, blue-silver grass can actually grow into a soul beast. When it grows into a soul beast, it can be called the blue-silver king when it reaches 10,000 years. And the blue-silver grass that is 100,000 years old is one of the blue-silver grasses. The emperor is the blue-silver emperor. Chang Xia explained. The blue-silver emperor has extremely strong recovery and healing abilities. No matter, it is quite suitable for Jukes and Haitang. However, now that the blue-silver emperor has fallen, only the blue-silver king can be chosen. Perhaps he can be regarded as Yingling in the future. A soul ring. Thinking of Ah Yin's blue-silver emperor right leg bone, its recovery ability is simply abnormal. When it comes to titled Douluo, Tang San can actually use it to regenerate other people's severed limbs, which is simply unbelievable. The right leg bone is like this, what about the soul ring? It's useless to give Tang Hao a blind job, he only knows how to hammer. It's a pity that the blue-silver emperor is gone, and there is only one blue-silver king left. I don't know if draining Tang San's blood can cultivate the blue-silver king into the blue-silver emperor. Chang Xiao's thoughts were racing. Because of his previous experience, Yi Renxin did not doubt Chang Xiao's words and believed that Chang Xiao would not make random accusations. Therefore, after hearing the description of the blue-silver king and the blue-silver emperor, Yi Renxin's eyes lit up. Blue-silver king. Dugo saw that he was really thinking carefully and said in surprise, "No way, Lao Yi, are you really going to listen to this kid? Don't talk about the blue-silver king. I have never seen the blue-silver king. How can one can become a king through cultivation with blue-silver grass? But didn't the jade phosphorus snake under Dugo's crown become the jade phosphorus snake king?" Chang Xiao's eyes were strange. Dugo choked for a moment and couldn't find the words to refute. Can that be the same? My grandfather's martial soul evolution. What is blue-silver grass? Dugo Yan also heard the conversation here, stopped whispering to the little sisters, and intervened. Of course it's also evolution. Chang Xiao said without hesitation. In the Qianjin ant colony, as the cultivation level increases, they will evolve into the Qianjin ant king, and finally become the Qianjin ant emperor. In the group, the emperor can command the ordinary soul beasts in the group. This is the evolution of the essence of life, rather than the ordinary superposition of years. The same is true for blue-silver grass. When you reach the level of blue-silver king, the essence of life has been sublimated. Its status is higher than ordinary blue-silver grass. You can even order them to dedicate their life force. And blue-silver king they must obey the orders of the blue-silver emperor. The gap in status forced them to surrender. The same is true for martial souls. The jade phosphorus snake can evolve into the jade phosphorus snake king, the 7 treasures glazed pagoda can also evolve into the 9 treasures glazed pagoda, and even the 9-heart begonia cannot break through. I think it is also because of the quality of the martial soul. Only evolution, martial arts only then can the quality of the soul be improved. After saying that, Chang Xiao looked at Dugo and guessed, if my prediction is correct, Senior Dugo must have encountered a bottleneck before. It was only after the martial soul evolved into the green-scaled snake queen that Senior Dugo was able to break through the titled Douluo. Is it right? Dugo's pupils shrank suddenly, and his heart was shocked. For a moment, he subconsciously held his breath because of the shock in his heart, because what Chang Xiao said was absolutely right. Dugo had been stuck at level 89 back then, and was still unable to reach the threshold of level 90, which made him waste many years. At that time, he even thought that it would be difficult to break through to the title Douluo in this life. However, by chance, he killed a Medusa and obtained a piece of Medusa's skull. This allowed him to break through to the Jade Phosphorus Snake King, thus breaking through the threshold in one fell swoop and being promoted. Reach level 90. Before this, none of his ancestors had broken through to the title Douluo. Only him. Therefore, he had also speculated whether the Jade Phosphorus Snake was defective, which would not only lead to poisoning, but also prevent him from breaking through the titled Douluo. But he had no basis for it, and he kept this matter in his heart. Even his granddaughter Dugo Yan never mentioned it. But now that it was revealed by Chang Xiao in an understatement, Dugo could not calm down the complexity in his heart. No, it's impossible. Dugo Yan's lips turned white. She couldn't believe it. If what Chang Xiao said was true, Wouldn't it mean that Grandpa's breakthrough to the title Douluo was just a flash in the pan, while she herself had great potential? It's possible that you can't touch that realm at all. She has always been targeting her grandfather. She considers herself to be quite talented. Compared with her grandfather's training experience, she has always been slightly ahead. As early as when she was young, she had set up her ambition to inherit the title of Poison Douluo. But now, she was told that she would never be able to break through the title Douluo, directly knocking her biggest wish in her life into pieces. How do you want her to accept it? Dugo Yan looked miserable and couldn't help but take a step back. If he wasn't careful, his feet gave way and he was about to fall down. Yingling quickly supported Dugo Yan and hugged her gently. Her soft palms gently comforted Dugo Yan's back. She couldn't bear it and sympathized with her sister. When she was young, she also thought about becoming a titled Douluo, but when she grew up, she realized that Juxin Haitang could not break through to a titled Douluo, and she was also hid for a long time at that time. At that time, she just had a vague concept of titled Douluo. Even so, she was sad for a long time. Dugo Yan, on the other hand, has been striving for the title of Douluo for more than 10 years. To suddenly suffer such a blow, she is probably even more sad than she was at the beginning. Yi Renxin didn't pay attention to the expressions of the three of them. Among them, he was the least impacted. Therefore, he keenly captured the information in Chang Xiao's words. You mean, after the martial spirit evolves, you will have the opportunity to touch that realm? Every martial spirit has the possibility of evolution. Yi Renxin asked. Chang Xiao nodded and turned to talk about another thing. If I were to classify martial souls, I don't like to use the word waste martial souls, because the quality of martial souls can be changed. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Chang Xiao decided to put forward the concept of the ultimate martial spirit. When a martial spirit evolves into a top-level martial spirit, it is very likely to break through the title Douluo. And the ultimate martial spirit may become a 99th level title Douluo. The ultimate martial spirit is. After a long time, Chang Xiao gradually stopped and his throat became dry. Yi Renxin took out a water bag from the soul guide and threw it to Chang Xiao. Chang Xiao took it and poured it into his mouth. What is the way to improve the quality of martial arts? Dugo stared at Chang Xiao with his gem-like green eyes. This was the question he was most concerned about. Dugo Yan's delicate body trembled, and she lifted her tearful cheeks from Yingling's shoulders. She looked at Chang Xiao with despair and a hint of aspiration, hoping to get an answer from him that would ignite her hope. Although Yi Renxin and Yingling did not speak, they also slowed down their breathing and could not take their eyes away from Chang Xiao. The temptation of a titled Douluo was too great for them to ignore. If given the opportunity, no one would refuse to become a titled Douluo. Unknowingly, Chang Xiao had won the trust of 4 people, and feeling the 4 pairs of eyes with different meanings, Chang Xiao suspected that even if he was just making it up, he would probably be able to convince them most of it. This is good news for Chang Xiao. Only by planting a good image in their hearts, can he rely on Yi Renxin's wings to make his voice known to the entire Soul Master world, and then pave the way for his own abnormality, making him appear less dazzling. If he wants the Soul Master world to recognize him, he must first win the recognition of the 4 people in front of him. There are 2 ways. Chang Xiao stretched out 2 fingers. Soul rings and soul bones have a certain role in promoting the quality of martial arts. Of course, soul bones are rare, so let's not worry about it for the moment. Just talking about soul rings, both in terms of age and attributes, they must reach a certain extreme. The age is extremely close to the limit. Even beyond the limit, the attributes must be extremely consistent with the martial spirit, so that it is possible for the martial spirit to evolve in the last few rounds. Of course, there may be omissions in every link, and if there is a slight deviation, the success may fall short. This method is not suitable for everyone. Then you need to consider the second one. That's taking the purest spiritual thing in the world. But this kind of thing can only be found but not sought, so. Chang Xiao shrugged. Spiritual objects naturally include fairy grass. In addition, those similar to the 10-headed fiery sun snake inner pill can also be included in this list. Among the fairy grasses, there were only a few types that he was familiar with, and he couldn't find the most suitable one for them at the moment. Therefore Chang Xiao did not mention it. He planned to find out the properties of all the fairy herbs in the future, and then select the most suitable one for several people. The 4 people in front of him also helped him a lot. There was no reason for him to monopolize all the opportunities of the fairy grass. At least they have to help Dugo and Yingling raise their martial spirits to the top level. As for becoming a god, he himself is not sure yet about becoming a god, so naturally he doesn't dare to think too far ahead. Judging from the original work, there are not many opportunities to become a god, and each god's successor has selected its successor early. The Shira god was blocked by Tang Chen. He stood in the pit and did not shit. Only the Poseidon god there's a bit of a chance. Don't want a god. Become a god yourself. It's not that Chang Xia hasn't thought about it, but this road is too difficult. It took Poseidon thousands of years to gather his faith and become a god. A son of a plane like Huo Yuhao had a chance to become a god king, but in the end he was forced to become the god of emotions. It can be seen that this road is difficult. If there is a shortcut, he will naturally choose it. Only when the shortcut is blocked will he choose the last path of becoming a god himself. But no matter which choice you make, it's too difficult. Dugo Yan smiled bitterly, his face turned pale. How can spiritual objects be so easy to obtain? Seeing that she was hit hard, Chang Xia couldn't bear it. After thinking about it, he persuaded her, don't worry too much. I have some ideas, but they are still a bit fuzzy now. I will tell you when I am sure that I can realize them in the future. For the time being, what you and Yingling need to do is to be careful in choosing soul rings and never make decisions lightly. The reason why Chang Xia said this is not only that there is no way to distinguish the fairy grass for the time being, but more importantly, it is not suitable for Dugo Yan to evolve before he solves the corrosion of the green phosphorus snake venom on his body. The jade phosphorus snake is a naturally highly venomous snake and is a descendant of the sub-dragon species. If Dugo Yan takes the fairy grass now, whether he evolves into the jade phosphorus snake king or evolves towards the sub-dragon species, the toxins he possesses will be more intense. This is not a good choice for her. Due to genetic factors, the toxins in Dugo Yan's body were even stronger than those of her father. Now that she is still a young girl, her eyes have turned green. According to this trend, she may have a shorter life than her father. If she evolves into a more poisonous jade phosphorus snake king or even a sub-dragon species, and she does not have the soul power as powerful as Dugo to suppress the poison, she will have to rely on Jukes and Begonia every day in the future. Everyone was silent. After a long time, Yi Renxin exclaimed, if you make these remarks more perfect and support them with some examples, I'm afraid it will become a theory of its own. The quality of martial arts, the ultimate martial soul, and the evolution of martial souls. These remarks are obviously not fallacies spun casually. If you analyze them carefully, you can see the context. This is a complete structure that is well thought out and interconnected. Hey, Grandpa Yi is ridiculous. At my age, even if I publish it, not many people will believe it. Chang Xia said modestly. Yi Renxin nodded. It was true. No one would believe the theory published by a child. The path of theory was not like that of a soul master who believed in genius. Suddenly, there seemed to be a bolt of lightning in his mind, and Yi Renxin suddenly realized it. Then he nodded Chang Xia and laughed and cursed. You brat, that's what you had in mind. Obviously, with Yi Renxin's shrewdness, it is not difficult to guess Chang Xiao's purpose of deliberately befriending him. Grandpa, what's his plan? Yingling blinked, his eyes full of doubts. Dugo didn't expect it at first, but after Yi Renxin woke him up, he realized it and immediately glared and cursed. Okay, no wonder you little fool doesn't want to accept me as your teacher. You have been staring at Lao Yi for a long time. Chang Xia didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and quickly handed over his hands and begged for mercy. If you regret it, it's still too late. It's okay to suppress this kid now and let him become a disciple. Yi Renxin joked. Hearing this, Dugo rolled his eyes, flicked his sleeves, became arrogant again, and snorted coldly, huh. It's his loss if he doesn't worship me as his teacher. One day he will ask me for help. He is a majestic titled Douluo, so he doesn't want to lose face. If he was asked to suppress others to become his disciple, where would he put his face? How could the harsh words, crying, shouting and begging him, that he had put down at the beginning be ignored in such an understatement? Yi Renxin shook his head and was too lazy to pay attention to his arrogant old friend. He looked at Chang Xia and said, "It's not impossible, but it still needs to be perfected. If you just send it out like this, you won't be able to convince most people." "Does this mean, agree?" Chang Xia was pleasantly surprised and nodded. "This is natural. Words alone are definitely not enough. All kinds of detailed information are needed to support it." He thought of Qian Runshui. "No one has more detailed information than Wuhan Palace, but I don't know if she is willing. If not, she can only rely on the library of Tiando Royal Academy. Let's go, give it to Yingling first." Suddenly, a strong wind blew, and an extremely strong soul pressure came straight towards them from the depths of the forest. Dugo and Yi Renxin's expressions changed drastically, and they quickly stopped in front of the three juniors and released their martial spirits to withstand this terrifying pressure. In an instant, yellow, purple and black soul rings rose and fell under the two people's feet, and a terrifying wave spread in all directions. Although they did not face the momentum of the two of them directly, Chang Xia and the others still felt the pressure on their shoulders. "Which titled Douluo is it? You and I are in harmony with each other, so why are you targeting me?" Dugo shouted in a deep voice. The endless fluctuations of soul power did not feel familiar to Dugo. He originally thought it was the rotten chrysanthemum looking for trouble, but after feeling it carefully, he discovered that he did not recognize the other party at all. On this continent, all titled Douluo have names and surnames, but the other party is obviously not among the list of titled Douluo that the world knows. Could it be those lonely people who live in seclusion? Dugo felt a little heavy in his heart. "I have long heard that your name is the best in the world for poison. It just so happens that I am also good at poison. I want to have a discussion with you to see whether your poison is stronger or mine." There was an erratic sound in the forest. An uncertain dull sound. Dugo tilted his head slightly, glanced at the three people behind him from the corner of his eye, and then said, "Your Excellency wants to spar, I will accompany you. It's just that I am hunting for the soul ring for the junior today. It will be inconvenient. How about we fight another day? I came here specially, how can I be delayed by such a trivial matter? You and I change places, don't worry, today is just for discussion, and I won't hurt your juniors." Dugo looked solemn and frowned, obviously worried. "I'm gibbering like a moron. My hands are already itchy. What nonsense are you trying to talk to him about? Just call him. What does it have to do with us whether his junior dies or not?" The sudden sound made Dugo's face so gloomy that he could drip water. This voice was obviously different from the previous one. Moreover, the voice was thick and the breath was not weak. "Another titled Douluo. What's going on today? I encountered 2 banned accounts when I went out, and they were still banned from a hidden world that I had never heard of before. When did titled Douluo become so worthless? If 2 titled Douluo from the other side join forces, not to mention whether he can win, if there were a fight here, the 3 juniors would be seriously injured if they were caught in the aftermath. Dugo, we won't bully you. You take Yi Renxin and compete with me. If you still disagree, we will take action directly. Whether your junior is alive or dead is none of our business." Quote. Yi Renxin whispered. "They want to lure us away. Don't be fooled. The other party's purpose is too obvious. Although I don't know what the other party's purpose is, I think it's not a good thing. Whether there is a trap waiting for them or whether they plan to take down the 3 juniors to threaten them is unknown. Therefore, if you can't leave, try not to leave." Dugo responded. "Of course I know, but can I really fight them here?" The 2 of them looked towards the back at the same time, a trace of sadness appeared on their faces. "This is so annoying. It's not possible to fight here, nor is it possible to leave." Chang Xia frowned. He also felt something was wrong, but couldn't figure out the reason for the moment. When he felt the eyes of Dugo and Dugo looking back, he felt a little unsteady in his heart. Thinking of the care taken by Yi Renxin and Dugo during the recent period, Chang Xia took a deep breath and said, "Senior, go ahead with peace of mind. We will take care of ourselves. If anything happens, we will remind you as soon as possible." Titled Douluo's battle is far beyond what he can participate in now, and the further away, the better. No matter how much Chang Xia worried about the dispute between titled Douluo, he could only rely on Dugo and Yi Renxin. What he, Yingling, and Dugo need to do is not to hold them back. The configuration of the 2 titled Douluo was already very strong. Qian Runshui was only equipped with the two titled Douluo, the Arkfish and the Snake Spear, even as an undercover agent. He could understand if it was targeting Dugo and Yi Renshin, but if it was just to catch a few of their juniors, it would be a bit like using a cannon to swat mosquitoes, overkill and underutilizing. Therefore, at most, a few weak ones will come to arrest them as a threat, and there is absolutely no chance that a titled Douluo will come. Is it really worthless to be a titled Douluo? 3 at a time. Every soul saint looks up to them. How can anyone capture a few children and use soul saint? After much deliberation, it was safer to stay away from the center of the battle. To prevent him from vomiting blood after being shocked, Juxin Begonia is there, so he won't be shocked to death, but it's not a problem to vomit blood all the time. Dugo frowned, a little uneasy, but the biggest crisis now is these two mysterious titled Douluo. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and agreed. You guys take care of yourselves and don't get out of this poisonous circle. After saying that, he activated his soul power, and a huge green python spit poisonous mist from its mouth, trapping several people. Yi Renshin took out a cylindrical object from the soul guide and handed it to Chang Xia subconsciously. Chang Xiao's conversation these days made Yi Renshin quite trustworthy. If anything happens, just let it go and let us know. Okay. Chang Xiao took it and nodded solemnly. Ji Yubo and Yi Renshin looked at each other, no longer hesitating, jumped out of the poisonous circle, and disappeared into the forest in an instant. A gloomy scream resounded, startling countless birds. HMPH. Just let me teach you about your poison. Boom. The soul power collided, and the strong wind blew back. The sound of the collision became farther and farther away, until it was far away from where Chang Xiao was. Take a rest. Chang Xiao looked away and looked at the two girls. The two girls were obviously not thinking much. Although they could no longer see them, they still looked worriedly at the direction in which the two old men disappeared. Chang Xiao had no choice but to look around vigilantly to avoid any accidents. But the less you want something to happen, the more it happens. Time passed bit by bit, and just when Chang Xiao was slightly relaxed, suddenly, a beast roar sounded, and he suddenly broke into the poisonous fog circle. Chang Xiao did not expect this turn of events. After all, soul beasts are also intelligent, and the green phosphorus snake venom is extremely poisonous. Dugo used it to protect the ice and fire eyes, and no soul beast has ever entered without opening his eyes. But they were so unlucky today that they bumped into a fool. It was a crazy two-headed demon, 3 meters in size, with red eyes. After breaking into the poisonous mist, most of its body was corroded by the poisonous mist. The bones were visible, and the white bones had been corroded by the poisonous mist. The toxins dyed it pitch black. But its ferocious eyes were filled with madness. Even on the verge of death, it still wanted to vent its last rage and bite the 3 people in front of it to death. Be careful. Chang Xiao stopped in front of Yingling and Dugo with a solemn expression. This two-headed devil is 3 meters long, and its fangs have reached its nose. It is at least a 10,000-year-old two-headed devil. 1,000-year soul beast. Chang Xiao's heart skipped a beat. Couldn't it be such a coincidence? Do we need to use shadow soul beasts to deal with it? But there are 2 people watching from behind. Or just drag it on for a while. Wait for it to be poisoned. But the 10,000-year-old soul beast was so furious when it was about to die that it could paralyze him with just one slap. But seeing the two-headed demon approaching them dragging its seriously injured body, Chang Xiao had no other choice but to bite the bullet and immediately release the Shadow Realm, preparing to release the Shadow Soul Beast. However, when the Shadow Realm was released, in Chang Xiao's perception, there was a shadow quietly hiding around the poisonous mist. Is there anyone? Chang Xiao's expression changed, his mind exploded like sparks, and countless thoughts flashed through him in an instant. This soul beast must have been sent in by him and it didn't escape. But what is he trying to do? Just to kill yourself, or something else? It was too late for him to think too much. Almost instantly, Chang Xiao judged that the Shadow Soul Beast could not be released. Chang Xiao immediately raised the items left by Yi Renshin in his hand and prepared to let them go. The moment he took it out, the figure hidden in the dark couldn't sit still and disappeared in an instant. The next moment, it appeared in front of Chang Xiao and the others. Her golden hair flew like a waterfall, and she had 6 wings on her back. She appeared in the eyes of the 3 people like an angel descending. The moment she appeared, it was as if the sun was surrounding her, giving her a sacred aura. Dugo Yan and Yingling's eyes were blurred for a moment, as if they were stunned. Only Chang Xia was holding up the cylindrical device in his hand, looking at the elegant back with black lines on his head. With golden hair and 6 pairs of wings, Chang Xia could guess who the woman in front of him was even without seeing her face. Qian Runshui. The moment she appeared, Chang Xia figured out everything. Those two titled Douluo must be the Array Douluo and the Snake Spear Douluo, and they must not have escaped. This series of things was all arranged by this woman. But is there something wrong with this woman's mind? Arrange so many things just to appear in front of yourself. You think, Shui Qinghe, is not good for co-writing, but Qian Runshui is enough, right? Are you planning to use Qian Runshui in a hero saves the beauty scene? No, sister, are you too cliché? This is what we used to do when we were chasing girls in junior high and high school in our previous lives. Who would use this now? Why don't you try some new tricks? If you don't know how, I can teach you new tricks that will make people's eyes shine. The muscles on Chang Xiao's face couldn't help but twitch slightly. He really couldn't understand the brain circuit of this silly woman. However, Qian Runshui in front of the 3 people had no idea that Chang Xiao had accumulated a lot of complaints in his mind. He didn't hear the release signal later, and he breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that he had caught the opportunity just right. Fortunately, she appeared in time, otherwise, if he had sent out a signal to have Dugo and Yi Renxin rush back, she would have had no chance. Qian Runshui raised her right hand, the black 5th soul ring lit up, and the sacred fire condensed into a long sword in her hand. She slashed hard, and the sword energy transformed by the flames burst out instantly, striking the 2-headed devil's body. The 2-headed devil didn't even let out a wailing sound before it was torn into pieces by the sword energy. After doing all this, Qian Runshui turned around, showed a stunning smile, and stretched out her hand in front of the girl who fell to the ground. Are you guys okay? What the hell? It was you who caused the trouble. You really think I don't know you? Your 6 pairs of angel wings are so bright, can there be a second woman with them? Chang Xiao didn't know what he was feeling, but it was terrible anyway, and he was complaining crazily in his heart. Qian Runshui is wearing a one-piece golden palace dress. The long skirt is woven with gold silk without too many patterns. The style is simple and elegant. Matched with her long golden hair like a waterfall, it seems that the whole person is bathing in the rays of the sun is mind-blowing. With such a holy look, even Yingling and Dugo Yan couldn't resist her charm, their eyes were blurred and their pretty faces turned red with shame. I'm fine. The 2 women stood up, retracted their hands, and said timidly. Qian Runshui was like an inviolable goddess, making them feel ashamed. Qian Runshui smiled softly, and then looked at Chang Xiao, only to find that Chang Xiao had an indifferent face, not showing any shock or other emotions due to her appearance. She even felt a trace of disgust in her eyes. No, shouldn't you be grateful for saving them? Even if you are not grateful, you should still be grateful for being saved, right? Why do you look so cold? I seem to appear in the form of Qian Runshui, right? At a certain moment, Qian Runshui even had doubts about her own appearance, thinking that she appeared in the form of Shui Qinghe. After calming down, Qian Runshui quickly threw these inexplicable thoughts out of her mind. What are you doing here? The soul beasts in this sunset forest are not weak. Qian Runshui showed concern, and couldn't help but secretly remind her, if I hadn't arrived in time, you would have been in danger. Thank you, senior. Dugo Yan and Yingling didn't know what was going on, so they immediately thanked them shyly. Qian Runshui nodded slightly. This was a normal reaction. But the next moment, her smile became slightly stiff. Gee, why is this kid still looking like this? At least give me some reaction. Thank you so much. Thank you for getting a soul beast. Are you secretly reminding yourself of your life-saving grace? Phew, this woman is so bad. Chang Xiao resisted the urge to roll his eyes and did not answer directly. Instead, he asked with a smile, then why are you here? Are you hunting soul beasts to obtain soul rings? Well, yes. Qian Runshui nodded calmly and changed the topic to the other party, what about you? So are we. Our elders have something to do and will be back later. Just in time, in order to express our gratitude, let us elders hunt the most suitable soul ring for you later. How about you stay here and wait for them to return? Qian Runshui's eyelids twitched. Stay. She wasn't out of her mind. She lured them away just to fool the 3 boys and girls alone. If she really waited for Dugo and the others to come back, she might be able to see through this scheme in an instant. What's more, she is not at the level to obtain a soul ring. If she really stays, her secret will be exposed sooner or later. No need. I already have a goal, and I can't stay here for long. Qian Runshui declined. Oh, that's it, then we won't keep you here. Chang Xia nodded and shooed them away. Qian Runshui felt a headache when she heard this. Why can't this kid get enough food and salt? It's too difficult to fool. Chang Xia, what are you talking about? They saved us, how could you drive them away without even saying thank you? Dugo pulled Chang Xia and scolded her in a low voice. Qian Runshui breathed a sigh of relief when she heard this. It was so difficult. If it weren't for Dugo, she would be embarrassed to stay. This guy doesn't give any face at all. Chang Xia was speechless, but he couldn't expose Qian Runshui. The 3 of them were not enough for this woman's hand. If they really angered her, the end would not be much better than that of the 2-headed devil. Since he couldn't drive the woman away, Chang Xia could only let the woman chat with the 2 girls. At this moment, Chang Xia also calmed down a little. He was nervous because of the 2-headed devil just now, so when he found out that Qian Runshui was responsible, he couldn't help feeling dissatisfied and angry. Complaining, I just want this woman to get out of sight and not be an eyesore. But after thinking about it carefully, although the hero saves the beauty plot is cliché, it is still a good idea. If I didn't know Qian Runshui's identity very well and had a god's perspective, I would probably be grateful to Qian Runshui for lending a helping hand. Just look at the attitudes of Dugo and Yingling towards Qian Runshui. This is the reaction of normal people. Unless someone is a very evil person, no one would speak ill of the savior, especially when the savior is a beautiful woman. It's a scene that even a girl can't handle, let alone a womanizing man. I'm afraid I've already thought about it at this moment, and even picked out the name of the child. A great traitor. Chang Xia felt something was wrong. Why did it feel like he was scolding himself? Is that considered a bad word? It doesn't count, right? Just when Chang Xia was thinking wildly, Qian Runshui fully demonstrated her skills as a prince. 3 times, 5 times, 5 times, 2 times, she won the favor of the 2 girls and quickly narrowed the distance between them. If she is allowed to continue chatting, it won't be long before the 3 of them can become best friends. This has to make Chang Xia sigh. Girls' friendship comes so quickly. Well, it went pretty quickly. Are you all students of Duuo Royal Academy? Qian Runshui asked intentionally or unintentionally after getting familiar with each other. Yes, so are Yingling and I. He is a student of Yuexuan. Dugo had a good impression of Qian Runshui and nodded. He is a student of Yuexuan. Qian Runshui pretended to be surprised, looking at Chang Xia, pretending not to understand. Then why did I see him protecting you just now? The students of Yuexuan protect the students of Duuo Royal Academy, which is a bit funny no matter how you look at it. Dugo curled his lips. He is just a little liar. He is not weak, even I am not his opponent. Moreover, his theory is also very strong. I have persuaded him to come to Duuo Royal Academy, but he just didn't want to. I think he went to Yuexuan just to pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger. Yes, sister, Chang Xia is very good at theory. My grandpa said he can become a school of his own. Yingling was like a little fangirl, with an inexplicable light in her eyes when she mentioned Chang Xia. After a while, Qian Runshui's title in their mouths changed from senior to sister. Self-contained, Qian Runshui's eyes flickered slightly, feeling slightly surprised. She didn't expect that there would be an unexpected gain during this trip, a theory of its own. If you can deserve Yi Renxin's praise, you shouldn't be lying. Hearing the 3 women mentioning the theory, Chang Xiao's heart moved and she thought of the books in Wuhan Palace. I was thinking about whether I could start with Qian Runshui, but this woman showed up at my door. I couldn't drive her away, so I might as well give it a try. At this thought, Chang Xiao's eyes flickered, and he deliberately interrupted. It's just some simple conjectures for the time being, and some data are needed to support it. It's a pity that Yuexuan lacks a collection of books in this field. I told you to come to Tiando Royal Academy a long time ago. Our academy's collection of books is much better than Yuexuan's. Dugo Yan couldn't help complaining. I'm afraid your Tiando Royal Academy's information is not enough. Chang Xia shook his head, sighed, and then pretended to mention Wuhan Palace casually. On this continent, I'm afraid only the Wuhan Palace's information can fully support it. A theory has arisen. Qian Runshui had a thought in her mind, and then said calmly, I do have some connections with Wuhan Palace, and I can provide you with some help. You, Chang Xiao pretended to question and shook his head with a smile, the information I need is strictly protected by every force. I'm afraid you can't be of much help. When Qian Runshui heard this, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but turn up slightly. Just because others couldn't do it, it didn't mean that she, Qian Runshui, couldn't do it. With her status, as long as she wants to, she can even mobilize the worshippers in the worship hall, let alone some information. As long as it is not the most confidential and core information of Wuhan Palace, she has the right to decide. It's just that you can't let this kid think that this thing is easy, otherwise how can you make him owe you a favor? Well, this is a bit troublesome. Qian Runshui pretended to be embarrassed, and her frown was still so touching, but it's not like there's no chance at all. Can you tell me your theory? Chang Xiao saw that she was pretending to be quite similar, and couldn't help but want to laugh in his heart, but he pretended to be calm on his face, showing that he didn't see through Qian Runshui, and talked about theoretical knowledge. First of all, it's the spirit of martial arts, quality. The two of them were showing off each other's acting skills, but one didn't know that his background had been completely exposed, while the other had a god's perspective, almost playing tricks on the other. After talking freely, Qian Runshui's expression became a little solemn. It was obvious that what Chang Xiao said attracted her attention. It is true that martial arts have evolved before, but most people think that it is an isolated case and cannot be replicated. But according to Chang Xiao, the evolution of martial arts can be controlled artificially. Although it is difficult, it is a great breakthrough to form a set of traceable roots. In addition, there is also a discussion of the ultimate martial soul and ultimate attributes, which makes Qian Runshui's eyes shine. When Chang Xiao stopped, Qian Runshui looked at Chang Xiao with a completely different expression. This young man was indeed worthy of her win. Ahem, your theory is unique. Qian Runshui cleared her throat and praised, and then mentioned the Wuhan Palace information. I probably understand what information you need. If it's just these, it's not like you can't borrow it. Oh, really? Chang Xiao raised his eyebrows, pretending to be overjoyed. Can you really help me? Immediately, Chang Xiao straightened his expression and asked in a solemn voice, I don't know how to call you. If you can help me, I will be grateful. Haha, I finally cracked open this kid's shell. I really thought you were indifferent. Qian Runshui's eyes were filled with secret joy. Just call me, Ren Shui. Qian Runshui paused and decided that it would be better to hide it for the time being, otherwise, it would be easy for people to think of something. After saying that, Qian Runshui took out a token from the soul guide and handed it out. Take this token, go to Tiando City's Wuhan Hall to find a man named Ji Yumo, and tell him that if you are here to borrow books from the collection, ask him not to inquire about anything else. If the information from Tiando City is not detailed enough, you can ask him to borrow it from Wuhan City for you. Although the shape of the token in Qian Runshui's hand is roughly the same as that of the Wuhan token, the pattern is completely different from it. Under the 6 wings stretched out, 2 dragon-shaped sticks stand crossed and stand underneath it. In addition, it also depicts a male lion, a ferocious crocodile, a luan bird, and a feathered bow. When he saw this pattern, several titles immediately came to Chang Xiao's mind: Qianjin, Zhongmo, Shangxi, Golden Crocodile. The token of the enshrinement hall. I don't know what level it is. But I guess it's definitely not an enshrinement order. There is still a big gap between the token of the enshrining hall and the enshrined token. He doesn't think that holding this token is like worshipping him personally. Qian Runshui is not stupid enough yet. Chang Xiao pretended not to know, stretched out his hand to take it, and said thank you, then thank you, Sister Shui. The sound of Sister Shui almost stopped Qian Runshui from tensing up. This was the first time someone called her that. Her delicate hand couldn't help but tremble, and it happened to touch Chang Xiao's stretched out hand. The two hands were clasped together, and suddenly, the words in their mouths were stuck in their throats, and their expressions changed suddenly. The two of them raised their heads at the same time, their shocked eyes colliding in the air, and they both saw the change in the other's face. Clang! Qian Runshui withdrew her jade hand as if she was electrocuted, and the token fell to the ground with a crisp sound. The crisp sound seemed to stimulate her. Qian Runshui jumped up suddenly, her breathing became stagnant, her pupils trembled, and her delicate body was as tight as a bow about to shoot an arrow. Despite her temperament, she couldn't help but have a hint of panic on her holy and beautiful face. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. A trace of doubt appeared on the faces of the two girls. Yingling asked confusedly, "Sister, what's wrong with you?" I'm fine." Qian Runshui reluctantly raised her lips, but couldn't reveal a smile. "I just remembered that I have been here for too long and I have to go hunt the soul beasts quickly. Come on, let's talk next time." After saying that, Qian Runshui ran out without looking back, and soon disappeared from the eyes of several people. No matter how you looked at her back, she looked a little panicked and embarrassed. Why is she so anxious? Dugo Yan was confused. Chang Xia ignored her, frowned, bent down to pick up the token, and a dark cloud enveloped his heart. The moment he came into contact with Qian Runshui, he felt a trace of the throbbing from the Shadow King. Touching the pattern on the token, Chang Xia secretly thought, how could he have a martial soul connection with Qian Runshui? This is not the same illusion as Zhu Zuqing's time. This time it's true martial soul induction. Does the Shadow King get along with the Seraphim? Well, they are all god-level martial spirits. But one is from the undead system, and the other is from the light system. Etc. Chang Xia suddenly raised his head, his pupils shrank suddenly. The Shadow King was not the Shadow King from the beginning. When the Shadow King Aspen was alive, he was the greatest fragment of glory, created by the God of creation, the Absolute One. Among the glorious fragments, he is the strongest, always fighting on the front line for the Absolute One, carrying out God's will. In essence, Aspen is an angel too. After his death, Aspen awakened some kind of power hidden in his body by the Absolute One, and became the immortal king, the Shadow King. Could it be that the brilliance of the Shadow King resonates with the light of the Seraphim? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Qian Runshui stopped, her expression gloomy, she panted slightly, and her moist lips trembled slightly. After a long while, she calmed down a little, but no matter what, she couldn't accept this fact. Grandpa once told her some secrets about Seraphim. There is absolutely no way in this world that there is another person with the same level of martial spirit as her. But what happened just now? She clearly felt the throbbing of the seraph. But when they were in Yuexuan before, weren't the seraphs still angry because of that cold aura? Why such contrasting reactions? It's just that she has martial soul sense. Why is she at a disadvantage? Could it be that that boy's martial spirit was a little higher than his own? Qian Runshui looked ugly. You must know that martial soul fusion skills also have priorities, and if there are no unexpected situations, the priority of martial soul fusion skills often means the priority when two people get along. She obviously came here to control this boy. Will that kid still be the leader in the future? No, absolutely not. She will never allow this to happen. Don't have too much contact with him for the time being. After taking a few deep breaths, Qian Runshui finally calmed down, and after careful consideration, she made a decision. In addition, you must not use martial soul fusion skills with him. That's right, as long as you don't use martial soul fusion skills, there is no distinction between priority and inferiority. Just pretend it never happened. If I say no martial soul induction, it doesn't happen. Tiando City, Wuhan Palace. Platinum Bishop Solace was sitting on a soft sofa, and a graceful woman in a red dress was sitting on his lap, with a blushing face and tight lips. Solace, hands restlessly moved around her body, his eyes narrowed as if he wanted to strip off the woman's clothes. His big dry and rough hand reached under the skirt, and the woman quickly held down the hem of the skirt, showing pleading eyes, shaking his head and begging for mercy. Solace licked his lips, and his dim eyes became more and more excited. He liked this kind of resistant woman, which gave him the pleasure of conquering. It's much more exciting than those women who only know how to cater. Stab. Solace held the hem of the skirt and pulled hard, and the thin skirt was torn open by him, revealing his round and plump legs. Ah! The woman exclaimed, covered her torn skirt, knelt down, and was about to cry, "No. Please, Lord Bishop, let me go." Solace became even more excited when he heard the woman's plea. He felt his blood swell. He showed a disgusting smile and said, "Okay, as long as you serve me well, I will let your family go." After saying that, Solace unbuttoned his chest and pounced on it like a tiger pounces on its prey. Dong 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 dong. At this moment, there was a rapid sound outside the door. Solace was stunned, stopped what he was doing, frowned, and asked impatiently, "Who is it? Didn't you see that I was busy approving documents? It's nothing important, so don't disturb me." "Your Majesty, it's urgent." Solace felt furious after hearing this. "Is there anything we can't talk about tomorrow?" The sounds outside bored him, and he recognized that the person outside the door was the subordinate he hated the most. Quote. There was silence outside the door, but he did not leave. Solace glanced at the frightened woman, then looked outside the door. The evil fire in his lower abdomen shot up, making him irritable. Cursing secretly, Solace buttoned up the buttons, grabbed the woman's neck, and stuffed her under the desk to prevent anyone from seeing anything. Then he spread out the documents on the table, sat behind the desk, and pretended to be serious. Ahem. After doing all this and clearing his throat, Solace shouted in a stern tone, "Come in." A man who looked to be in his 30s pushed open the door and walked in. He glanced at the sofa calmly, frowned slightly in disgust, and did not choose to sit down. He just stood and put a piece of information on the sofa in front of Solace. The visitor's name is Guo, and he has a martial spirit and a dragon stick. A month ago, 7 soul masters lost their lives. Now the noble employers of those soul masters can't sit still and have united to demand an explanation. Guo described calmly with a cold expression. He wasn't interested in Solace. Anyway, he was here to get gold. Once he got good results, his elders would transfer him to Wuhan City, so he didn't need to fawn over Solace too much. Explanation. What explanation? They demand severe punishment for the murderer. Martial Soul Hall is not a place where these nobles can run wild. Do we want to investigate what happened to them? Kick them out. Solace threw the document back and said angrily, "This guy really didn't even bat an eyelid for disturbing his good business just to solve a small case. Don't bother me with this little thing from now on, get out." Guo had already anticipated Solace's reaction and asked patiently, "Bishop Solace, half a month ago, you had a letter from Bishop Harris to assist in the investigation, right? Why has there been no movement?" Quote. Harris. He helped when he said he was going to help. Am I that guy's subordinate? I have to listen to whatever he says. Solace heard this and almost laughed angrily. He is so capable, so let him, he'll check it himself. Martial Soul City sent a letter of inquiry. Guo said expressionlessly. Solace's hand shook and he almost knocked over the teacup beside the table. He quickly calmed down and his evil fire was instantly extinguished. Letter of inquiry. What letter of inquiry? Well, Bishop Harris submitted the case to Wuhan City. You didn't close the case and submitted it for half a month. Wuhan City is very dissatisfied with your efficiency. Solace's eyes widened suddenly. That Harris actually escalated the incident to Wuhan City. He cheated me. Why didn't you remind me? Solace stood up suddenly and roared, "Then why don't you go check it out? Why are you dawdling here? Is this important to that bullshit noble?" Guo raised his head, fearing that Solace's saliva would splash on him. If you carefully read the documents sent by Bishop Harris and the dossier I gave you this time, you will find that this is actually the same thing. Guo shrugged and pointed to the pile thrown by Solace. The papers on the table were scattered in a row. These two things are related to a child named Chang Xia. Solace's expression froze, and he quickly took the paper back and glanced at it hastily. Catch, bring this Chang Xia back. Solace said sternly. Tell those nobles that Wuhan Palace will never let such bad behavior go unchecked, but the investigation will take time. Give it to Wuhan City, send a letter and say that the murderer has been found and the case will be closed soon. You take people to arrest. Solace thought for a while. No. I will go myself. After that, he put his hand under the table. Click. There was a sound of bones breaking. Solace threw the disheveled woman out, and said with an indifferent expression, "Take her away." He no longer has the heart to taste the deliciousness of women. The top priority is to capture that guy named Chang Xia. Ji Yumo looked at the disheveled corpse and frowned, with a hint of displeasure on his face, but he didn't say anything. After Solace left in a hurry, Ji Yumo gently caressed the girl's cheek and closed her eyes for her. About half an hour after Qian Runshui left, Dugo and Yi Renxin also came back. There were no casualties. They said it was a discussion, but the other party did not try their best. They just tried every possible means to slow them down. Originally, the two of them thought that the other's target was the three little guys at the rear, so they attacked with all their might, in a desperate manner. But no matter how they attacked, the other party was like a loach, not taking any attacks at all, but when they were about to leave, the other party entangled them. For a moment, the two of them felt heavy and had a bad premonition in their hearts. But for some reason, the other party suddenly stopped and let them go. Dugo and Yi Renxin didn't care about each other's purpose, turned around and hurried back, only to find that the three of them were safe and sound, which made them confused for a moment. Fine, so what is the other party's purpose? Dugo and the other two looked sad. The two titled Douluo who suddenly appeared were extremely powerful, but their names had never been heard of on the mainland, which was really strange. Two titled Douluo came and went without doing anything. This couldn't just be idle and have nothing to do. Could we take advantage of them for fun? Surprised, Dugo asked, did anything happen while we were away? Yes, a two-headed devil just rushed in. It almost. Under Dugo Yan's narration, the two learned that a woman had broken into the poisonous mist, and countless questions in their minds were answered instantly. Hiss, what is the background of that woman? She is actually protected by two titled Douluo. Dugo looked at each other in shock with his old friend. Although they did not speak, the expressions on each other's faces seemed to be able to tell what was deep in their hearts. Soon, the two of them realized at the same time that such a woman had actually set up such a trap to lure them away. In an instant, there was a chill behind the two people. They suddenly looked at the three of them and asked in a slightly stern voice, what did she do? Yingling and the two were originally happy because they met a beautiful sister, especially because this sister was kind-hearted and saved them, which greatly increased their goodwill. But under Dugo's scolding, the two girls seemed to realize the seriousness of the matter. Their delicate bodies trembled and they recounted the incident exactly as it was, except for the token. Long before they came back, Chang Xia told the two girls not to tell anything about the token. After all, this thing would remind Dugo and Dugo of many things, which could easily lead to twists and turns. Yingling was very coaxiable and quickly agreed. But Dugo Yan was not that easy to fool, and he had to let Chang Xia join Tiando Royal Academy before he would help him hide it. In desperation, Chang Xia had no choice but to nod and say that he would think about it. Only then was Dugo Yan satisfied and promised not to tell anyone about the token. After hearing what happened, Dugo and Yi Renxin looked solemn. Judging from the woman's behavior, it didn't seem to be malicious, but who was this woman? Moreover, you have put so much effort into making all the arrangements, just for the sake of some contact. But among these three little guys, who is worthy of her attention? Turning his gaze to Dugo Yan, Dugo shook his head secretly. It's not that even he, a grandfather, looked down upon his granddaughter. Although he was biased in his actions, there was one thing that said, his granddaughter's talent was indeed not enough for others to take seriously. Where Yi Renxin looked, Yingling was rubbing the corners of his clothes anxiously, for fear that his grandfather would blame him. Yi Renxin frowned. Could it be that he was here for Yingling? That's not quite right. Although Juxin Haidang is special, she doesn't want to come to a great soul master who has just reached level 30. Yi Renxin rarely gets into trouble with others. If you need treatment, just come to him directly. Find someone who hasn't grown up yet. What's the use of a little girl? Chang Xia saw Yingling's uneasy look and was afraid that she would not be able to withstand the pressure and tell her about the token, so he gently shook her hand and gave her a comforting look. The warmth in her hands made Yingling feel at ease, and a hint of sweetness filled the corner of her mouth. Naturally, this little move did not escape Yi Renxin's eyes, and his eyes fell on Chang Xia. Thinking of Chang Xiao's various surprising performances in the past few days, could they be directed at this kid? Chang Xia, come with me. Yi Renxin waved and walked aside with Dugo. Yingling was a little worried and grabbed his hand and refused to let go, is everything going to be okay? Why don't we tell Grandpa? This was the first time she had deceived her grandfather, so she was inevitably flustered. Don't worry, just listen to me and everything will be fine. Chang Xia stroked Yingling's little head and comforted her softly. Yingling reluctantly nodded, biting her lip, and her frown relaxed slightly. It was only when Chang Xia let go and walked towards Yirenshin that Yingling suddenly understood. She wrinkled her nose at Chang Xiao's back and pouted, I told you not to touch your head. I'm not tall. I'm shorter than you. Quote. Chang Xiao came to Yirenshin, and Yirenshin didn't mince words and asked, why did that woman come to you? In his opinion, Chang Xiao's maturity was far beyond that of his peers, and he should not be able to see that the woman's motives were impure, but he did not inform them in time. This was not like Chang Xiao's past behavior. I don't think she has any ill intentions. Faced with the questioning looks of the two people, Chang Xiao pondered for a moment and decided to reveal some reliable information, otherwise he would be fooled. Moreover, she and I have a martial soul connection. She must have discovered this, so she deliberately approached me. Martial spirit induction. The two of them were stunned. But soon, the two of them suddenly realized. So that's the case, and that's the only way it makes sense. On this continent, it is extremely difficult to find someone who is highly compatible with your own martial spirit. It is difficult to find one person among millions of people. As for the two people with martial soul induction, the martial soul fusion skills they performed were far more powerful than ordinary soul skills. The unparalleled dragon-snake couple relied on their martial soul fusion skills to gain some prestige on the mainland, and the royal family of the Duuo Empire, in order to continue the martial soul fusion skills, even married with the Zhu family from generation to generation to ensure that their martial souls the fusion technique spreads. Now that the woman has met someone whose martial soul is compatible with her, it is understandable that she would like to have some contact with him. Well, since you have met someone who is compatible with your martial soul, we can't say much. However, you still have to be cautious. After all, the identity of that person is not simple. Yi Ren warned. Yes, I know. Chang Xiao nodded. Qian Runshui was so naive that she thought she didn't know her identity, so she played this trick for him and saw who got tricked in the end. Okay, let's go. Yingling kept looking at Chang Xiao worriedly, and saw from a distance that her grandfather didn't seem to be angry, and couldn't help but feel relieved. When Dugo Yan saw this, she said sourly, look at you, you look like a little daughter-in-law waiting for her husband to come home. Yingling was very anxious when he heard this. His ears were as red as crystal grapes. He stomped his feet and scratched the soft flesh on Dugo Yan's waist. What nonsense are you talking about? Let you talk nonsense, let you talk nonsense. Ha ha ha, stop, 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 I won't say it anymore, I won't say it anymore, ha ha ha. Not long after, Chang Xiao and the others came over and met the eyes of the two girls. Chang Xiao nodded gently, indicating that there was no problem. The girl was determined, but immediately felt a strange feeling in her heart. It was quite strange to follow the boy to deceive the elders. The few people set off again and went to the depths of the sunset forest. With Dugo there, they easily hunted for Yingling, a 1100-year-old Beishengwa vine, which has extremely strong regeneration ability. If it weren't for Dugo, the poison is so toxic that it would be difficult for ordinary people to kill it completely. This is the most suitable third soul ring that Juxin Haidang has concluded from generation to generation in the Yi family. Chang Xiao did not ask for a replacement without authorization. Although Blue Silver King is very suitable for Juxin Haidang, he does not have the position of Blue Silver King. Tang Hao, who was taken there by the Blue Silver Emperor, knew that. Secondly, the Blue Silver King had more than 80,000 years of existence, and Yingling could not absorb it now. After obtaining the soul ring, the group of people returned to Dugo Villa and rested for a night. Early the next morning, Chang Xiao returned to Tiando City, while Yingling and Duguyan went directly to the Tiando City located outside the city. Tiando Royal Academy. Chang Xiao went to Yuexuan alone. Although he had established a relationship with Qian Runshui, he still didn't know Shui Qinghei's identity, so Yuexuan still needed to maintain the line with Shui Qinghei, must pretend to know nothing and cooperate with Shui Qinghei. After not coming for a month, Yuexuan didn't seem to turn him away because of this. After seeing him, the guard at the door let him in without stopping him. However, just when Chang Xia was about to enter Yuexuan, suddenly, a low shout came from the end of the street. Chang Xia, something happened to you. Come with us. Chang Xia was stunned and looked back, only to see an old man wearing a platinum bishop's robe leading a group of Wuhan Palace soul masters, approaching him menacingly. Solace was so angry that he led his people to surround Yuexuan's door. Solace put his hands behind his back, with a hint of coldness in his eyes. Chang Xia, we suspect that you are related to the murder of a soul sect team. In addition, someone reported that you killed an employed soul master at home without authorization a month ago. Follow us, let's take a trip. Solace is now in a very unhappy mood. Yesterday, he brought people to Yuexuan to arrest someone, but was told that Chang Xia had not come to class for a month. After returning with no success, he was angry because his work was in vain, and it also disturbed his elegance. Fortunately, early this morning, someone from the city gate reported that someone suspected of being Chang Xia had returned to the city and went to Yuexuan. He quickly led people over and took them back. Chang Xia almost laughed out loud when he heard this. Are these nobles unable to afford it? They were the ones who sent the soul masters to make trouble for him, and now they are the ones filing the complaint after the failure. They have the final say on whether the collaboration is good or bad, right? Bishop Solace, right. Looking at Solace wearing a platinum bishop's robe, Chang Xia guessed the other party's identity and sneered, why don't you ask why I killed those soul masters? If anything happens, please come back to Wuhan Palace with me. Solace didn't care so much. He wanted to take this kid back to Wuhan City to give him an explanation. It didn't matter whether the case on the noble's side was true or false. Take it. Solace waved his palm and said coldly. Wow. The next moment, the soul masters from Wuhan Palace behind him surrounded him, trying to capture him. Chang Xiao's muscles tensed up and his fingers touched the token Qian Runshui gave him. He didn't know if the token would work. In the original work, he only saw that Solace obeyed the orders of the elders, but he didn't know whether he recognized the token. After all, Qiandaliu's worship hall and Bibidong's elders' hall seemed to have some similarities. Don't deal with it. Later, when Qian Runshui took charge of the enshrinement hall, the two became even more distinct. You took care of yours, I took care of mine, and they did not interfere with each other. Therefore, it is unknown whether this token of worship in the temple can make Solace bow his head. I'm afraid I won't be able to escape. No matter how dim and lustful Solace is, he is still a real Contra. It is impossible to escape from his hands. Wait, taking a deep breath, just as Chang Xia was about to take out the token in his hand, suddenly, a shout came from the end of the road. Everyone was shocked, and when they looked back, they saw a rather low-key but elegant carriage parked in front of Yuexuan Gate. Under the gaze of everyone, a handsome man was seen stepping out of the carriage, and a group of guards in armor walked out from behind the carriage, blocking the entrance of Yuexuan and confronting the spirit masters of Wuhan Hall. Shui Qinghe walked between the two parties, nodded slightly to Chang Xia as a greeting, then looked at Solace and said lightly, Bishop Solace, you can't take this boy away. Your Highness the Crown Prince. Seeing the man, Solace squinted his eyes slightly, with a hint of coldness on his withered old face. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Wuhan Hall is doing things without the royal family's comment. Wuhan Palace has become more and more powerful in recent years, and Solace, one of the 4 platinum bishops, has become increasingly domineering. On weekdays, even Emperor Shui Yi would not show respect, let alone the mere prince. Chang Xiao raised his eyebrows. Tut, it seems that Solace didn't know that Shui Qinghe was Qian Runshui pretending to be, and he dared to be so arrogant towards the heir of his boss. There is a good show to watch. Silently putting the token into his arms, Chang Xiao moved and quietly retreated behind Shui Qinghe. When Shui Qinghe heard this, a trace of displeasure flashed between his brows. The fact that she came here to be an undercover agent was a secret. Apart from Grandpa and the woman, only a few people in the worship hall knew about it. Solace was simply not qualified. Therefore, Solace never restrained himself from bullying men and women. Over the years, Shui Qinghe had long been dissatisfied with this old guy. That's all in the past. I never had any direct conflict with him, but now I am very angry at Solace's arrogance. Shui Qinghe was a little annoyed. What happened to that woman? She couldn't even control the people under her. He took a deep breath and said in a solemn voice, Bishop Solace, the person who reported the report only had a conflict with Chang Xia. I have talked with them and compensated the family of the deceased soul master, and they agreed to withdraw the case. Sarah's will Bishop C go back and take a look. Fights between soul masters will inevitably cause casualties, and the Wuhan Palace cannot take care of everything, otherwise the Wuhan Palace will be too busy to keep its feet on the ground. Except for the cases of degenerates who must be hunted and killed, the key to the rest of the casualties is whether the casualties have strong backends demanding severe punishment. Otherwise, if a group of lonely people died, what benefits would the spirit hall gain from punishing them? Now, Shui Qinghe has appeased the troubled nobles and dropped the case. Wuhan Palace naturally has no reason to arrest people. After Solace heard this, his expression changed slightly, but not much. He didn't come here because of the report from the nobles. He didn't even bother to pay attention to the reports from the nobles. The key is still the inquiry letter from Wuhan City. The report from the noble is just to catch a rabbit, incidentally. Oh, Chang Xia was involved in 2 cases. The other one was that the Zhu family of the Star Luo Empire reported that he was suspected of being a fallen person and killed the soul sect team that he hired. What, Your Highness, why don't you go to Star Luo as an envoy? Empire, Solace sneered. Shui Qinghe glanced at Chang Xia behind him in astonishment. Soul sect team. When did you do it? Chang Xia winked. Don't worry, are you okay? Shui Qinghe took a deep breath and turned back to look at Solace. Bishop Solace, this matter must be a mistake. I will let my father negotiate with the Star Luo Empire. We will discuss this matter later. Is that possible? Then let's wait until His Highness the Crown Prince has reached an agreement with the Star Luo Empire. The Wuhan Palace investigates the Wuhan Palace, and you negotiate with yours. Solace looked coldly, not wanting to talk to Shui Qinghe, and waved his hand to the city. Xiao took it. How dare you? Shui Qinghe shouted angrily. HMPH, Your Highness, you'd better take care of the country and don't have too much contact with some guys of unknown origin. Solace sneered. There is really nothing he dare not do. With his contra strength, unless he is banned, Solace sneers. Douluo, otherwise who can stop him? The person he wants to arrest cannot be retained today even if Emperor Shui Yi comes. Here, Solace has the final say. After saying that, Solace released his martial soul. The 8 soul rings were beating under his feet, and the terrifying soul power swept away, directly shaking Shui Qinghe's guards to the point where they vomited blood and fell back. Shui Qinghe's face was gloomy, his whole body was exuding a chill, his soul power was surging, and he had the potential to take action. Solace looked indifferent and looked at Shui Qinghe mockingly, feeling confident and confident. What? If the prince doesn't take action, then I will take him away. Shui Qinghe's soul power was condensed but not released. Chang Xia was watching with relish from the rear. The internal strife in Wuhan Hall was quite fun, but there was no fight. However, it seemed that Shui Qinghe could not be counted on. He had the same concerns as himself. In this day's fight, in the city, they also did not dare to use all their strength. Everyone from Wuhan Palace gathered around Chang Xia and the prince, including Shui Qinghe, pressing them closer and closer. You still have to rely on yourself. Chang Xia took a deep breath, his soul power surged, the strength of both strength and softness condensed in his fingers, and the left hand hidden in the cuff gradually turned into ice crystals. Superior. All the soul masters in Wuhan Hall released their souls and rushed towards Chang Xia who was behind Shui Qinghe. However, at this moment, a smelly and poisonous mist came from nowhere, rolled up those soul masters like a giant dragon, and then flew away. When Chang Xia saw this, his eyes lit up. It's done. He suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, and his soul power slowly calmed down. Ah! The moment the poisonous mist came into contact with the skin, the soul masters of Wuhan Hall immediately wailed and covered their faces. Then everyone saw in horror that the exposed skin of those soul masters began to fester, revealing their pale bones. Hiss! Solace, scalp was numb and he quickly stepped away, releasing his martial spirit to be alert to the incoming poisonous mist at any time, for fear of being contaminated. Who? Stand up for me! Solace turned his head suddenly and yelled angrily. 2 old men walked out. One had a kind face, but not a good look, and his eyes were cold. The other had green hair and a green beard, with shriveled skin on his face, and a pair of green eyes like those of a poisonous snake, which was eye-catching. shudder. You. Solace, pupils shrank and he took a step back in fear, avoiding him like a snake or a scorpion. Dugo. Why is he here? Dugo's poison may be nothing to a titled Douluo, and there are ways to resist it. But if it is really allowed to release toxins unscrupulously, it will be enough to kill everyone here. Even if he was a Contra and was contaminated by that poison, he would still be exhausted from dealing with it. Unless there is a way to resist the poison, Dugo's snake venom will be a one-sided massacre for weaker soul masters. The same was true for the others. Seeing such a terrifying sight, they immediately retreated far away and pushed out of the way. Without anyone blocking their way, Dugo and Yingling arrived in front of Shui Qinghe and Chang Xia without any hindrance. Your Majesty Dugo, Senior Yi. Shui Qinghe saluted slightly. Hello, Your Royal Highness. Yingling smiled. When Dugo saw Shui Qinghe for the first time, he couldn't help but frown. Prince Shui Xing was kind to him, so he instinctively rejected Shui Qinghe. Dugo nodded lightly and ignored him. He turned to look at Chang Xia and asked, what's going on? They rushed back after sending Duguyan and Yingling back to Tiando Royal Academy, but as soon as they entered the city, they heard someone talking about Wuhan Palace going to Yuexuan to capture a teenage boy. The two of them immediately felt that something was wrong and hurried over to this side. Fortunately, things had not gotten out of hand yet. After the biggest crisis was over, Chang Xia felt relaxed. He pretended to be sad and angry, pointed at Solace and complained bitterly, Grandpa Dugo, Grandpa Yi, you are finally here. If it had been a little later, I would be dead. There's a corpse. He actually wanted to kill me, saying that I was a fallen person. He also killed a soul sect team, but I was only 11 years old. Even if I cultivated from my mother's womb, it wouldn't be that fast. He looked as if he had been really wronged, and the tears came as fast as he could, as if they were real. Grandfather, does this kid have such a relationship? Solace even held his breath, and his pupils trembled. Why didn't that guy Ji Yumo find out about such an important matter? Couldn't it be that Harris and Ji Yumo were working together to deceive him? Why are you so confused? You shouldn't have come in person. Boy, what nonsense are you talking about? When did I say such a thing? Solace broke out in cold sweat, not daring to let Chang Xia arrange it anymore, and immediately shouted sternly, interrupting Chang Xiao's crying, I obviously said that you were related to a fallen person incident, and I want you to assist in the investigation. Ha, assist in the investigation and bring so many people. Those who don't know think that I kill people without blinking an eye, so it takes so many people to catch me. Chang Xiao glanced at the group of soul masters and sneered, Bishop Solace, don't you want to find an excuse to kill him on the spot without proof? Don't slander me. Solace was a little panicked. Feeling Dugo's increasingly unkind eyes, he couldn't help but take a half step back. What do you want to do? If you dare to kill me, Wuhan Palace will not let you go. Pass you. Dugo sneered, who do you think you are? So what if I kill you? If you can, let that rotten chrysanthemum catch me. After saying that, the soul power surged and the poisonous mist rolled towards Solace. The smelly poisonous mist surged in and enveloped Solace in an instant, leaving Solace horrified. But Solace was not one of those low-level soul masters. He immediately released his martial soul avatar, and the vast soul power directly shook away the poisonous mist. The poisonous mist rolled back, and many onlookers were affected by this and fell to the ground. Wail. Snort. When Dugo saw this, he snorted coldly, and the soul rings under his feet lit up. In an instant, sand and rocks flew, and a terrifying green giant python appeared in front of everyone. The terrifying soul power emitted by the 9 soul rings made everyone's hearts beat. It's so heavy that even breathing is slightly stagnant because of it. The 3rd soul ring lit up, and green phosphorus and purple poison surged to engulf Solace again. When Solace saw this, he felt even more desperate. He could temporarily shake off the poison, but that didn't mean he could compete with Dugo for a long time. As long as he showed a slight flaw, he would be eroded by the poison. Dugo, I will report this matter to Wuhan City. Just wait for the Pope's wrath. Not daring to stay any longer, Solace stamped his foot, a soul ring lit up, and shot out just before the poisonous mist was about to swallow it up. Without saying a word, he disappeared in embarrassment. He reached the end of the street, leaving even his soul master subordinates alone. The injured and disabled people all over the ground were all people affected by Dugo's poison, both innocent and not innocent. This scene made Chang Xia click his tongue, which shows how terrifying Dugo's destructive power is. Yi Renxin released his martial spirit, and the rich aura of life enveloped everyone. In an instant, the toxins in everyone's bodies were eliminated. The next moment, the rotten wounds on everyone's faces slowly healed and returned to their original state. Withdrawing his martial spirit, Dugo landed next to Chang Xia, picked up the kid in front of him, pretended to be vicious, and asked, "What trouble did your kid get into again?" "Grandpa Dugo, give me some face. There are so many people." Chang Xia was carried by Dugo like a cat. He felt very embarrassed and pointed at Shui Qinghe and others beside him. Shui Qinghe smiled, hurriedly raised his hands and said, "I happen to remember something else, so I won't bother Dugumian to teach the younger generation a lesson. Chang Xia, sometimes you still have to listen to your elders more, and we'll talk next time." After that, he left with the recovered guards. Hey, hey, hey. Chang Xia looked at Shui Qinghe's back that was not sloppy at all, and cursed in his heart, "Qian Runshui, you are really nothing. Boy, come with me. Your Majesty, Senior Dugo, Grandpa Dugo, please let me down. Let me down first and then talk." Shui Qinghe returned to the prince's mansion and turned away everyone. Anger immediately surged on Qingfeng's calm face. Young Master, Snake Spear Douluo and Porpoise Douluo appeared. Recalling Solace's unscrupulous face, Shui Qinghe felt that it was hard to vent his anger. He slapped his palm on the table and gritted his teeth and said, "Send a message to Grandpa and ask that woman to transfer that Solace away. Don't let me see him again. Otherwise, don't blame me for letting him die in Tiando City." Dugo and Yi Renxin looked serious and stared at Chang Xia in front of them without a smile. Chang Xia sighed. It seemed like he couldn't be fooled unless he explained clearly. "I was indeed the one who killed the soul sect." Chang Xia sighed. Dugo and Yi Renxin looked normal. This boy had surprised them in many ways, including this one. Being able to defeat the Soul Master Duguyan with his own soul skills, it is not surprising that this kid has other trump cards hidden in his hand. "The group of soul sects ambushed me first, and I attracted a few 5,000-year-old soul beasts to drive the tigers and devour the wolves, and then..." Chang Xia started making up stories again. The two of them didn't believe it. Not to mention that the boy in front of him was a habitual deceiver. Even if he really wasn't deceiving, these alone were not enough for the Wuhan Palace to arrest him on the grounds of being a degenerate. Chang Xia faced the two pairs of questioning eyes, filled with grief and anger. "It's really just like this. Why don't you believe it? What I said is true. Didn't I make it up enough?" There was a long silence. Chang Xia was upright, but as time went by, he was finally defeated by two sneering faces. "My martial spirit is defective. After the martial spirit is possessed, it will destroy my will, and my own body cannot bear the possession for a long time. The last time I was in a coma for a month, this may not be the reason." Quote. Yi Renxin and Dugo looked at each other in surprise, and this answer was a bit unexpected. "Look at your martial spirit." Chang Xia knew he couldn't escape. With a thought, his soul power surged, and then, a terrifying and ferocious dragon appeared behind him. "This is my martial spirit, Dragon Emperor." The moment the Dragon Emperor appeared, an aura of destruction spread. Dugo suddenly stood up, looking at the ferocious dragon in shock. As a titled Douluo, his feelings are much more sensitive than those of low-level soul masters. Especially after the Jade Phosphorus Snake evolved into the Jade Phosphorus Snake King, his changes in martial arts reached an astonishing level. And just now, the moment Chang Xia released his martial spirit, the Jade Phosphorus Snake Emperor actually had a tremor. How can this be? Even the blue electric Tyrannosaurus spirit couldn't give him this feeling. What exactly is this boy's martial spirit? What's wrong? Yi Renxin's feeling was not as intense as that of Dugo, but the crazy aura of destruction made him feel a little uncomfortable. "No, it's nothing." Dugo suppressed the shock in his heart and looked unnatural. Seeing Dugo's reaction, Chang Xia had some guesses in his mind. The Jade Phosphorus Snake was also a descendant of the dragon species, so it was not surprising that he had some feelings for the Dragon Emperor's power. However, Yi Renxin's Juxin begonia has nothing to do with the dragon clan, so naturally it doesn't touch her much. Suddenly, Chang Xia discovered something strange about himself. What's wrong with you? Yi Renxin frowned, wondering why the old man and the young man were so startled today. In the past, when I released my martial spirit, within 2 breaths, my body would feel heavy and I couldn't support it. Now it feels like nothing is wrong. Chang Xia was a little surprised. But in the next moment, Chang Xiao's mind flashed, and the scene he saw in Bingwo Liangyi's eyes suddenly dawned on him. He asked himself and answered, maybe those 2 herbs reshaped my body and made my body stronger. This was explained to Dugo and Yi Renxin. In fact, it is impossible for the star anise ice grass and fiery apricot jiaoshu to achieve such an effect. It must be that the 2 dragon souls he was involved with at that time strengthened his body to a certain extent. Although the 2 dragon kings are not as strong as Shirashini's sword, they are still god-level dragon kings. Even if they only increase his body a little, it will be enough to benefit him a lot. Look at the spirit possessed. Yi Renxin pursed his lips. Chang Xia hesitated. I'm afraid I can't hold on. With us here, what are you afraid of? Dugo sneered. Whether it was losing consciousness and only killing randomly, or being physically injured, a titled Douluo or a 9-hearted begonia couldn't solve it. Do you really think they are no longer useful when they are old? Fine. The moment the martial spirit possessed him, fine beads of sweat broke out on Chang Xiao's forehead. The crazy will to destroy was constantly impacting his mind. Bloodshot eyes quickly climbed up. The terrifying power made his whole body feel an unbearable feeling of severe pain. Chang Xiao's body expanded, and his whole body began to be covered with fine dragon scales, and his pupils turned into crazy dragon eyes. Behind him, a dragon's tail swung and slapped the ground, causing the ground to instantly shatter. Dragon transformation. Dugo's eyes changed drastically, and he was extremely shocked. He has dealt with the blue electric Tyrannosaurus family. The blue electric Tyrannosaurus is known as the best beast martial spirit in the mainland. However, despite this, the blue electric Tyrannosaurus will only gradually begin to show signs of dragon transformation after the 3rd ring. But this kid's martial soul doesn't even have a soul ring, so he can transform a large area into a dragon. Doesn't that mean that this kid's martial spirit is much stronger than the blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex? Where did this kid come from? It seems, can hold on for a while. A difficult voice squeezed out from between Chang Xiao's teeth. When he fought against those soul masters hired by nobles before, he couldn't hold on for even a minute. And now he has a feeling that the time he can sustain is at least 5 times longer than before. That dragon soul is indeed useful. We must find a way to completely awaken the dragon soul. Chang Xia made up his mind. Well, then keep at it and see where the limit is. Yi Renxin nodded. Time passed bit by bit, and not long after, Chang Xia could no longer hold on, his legs and feet went weak, and he knelt on the ground with one knee, his face ferocious, and his crazy will to destroy gradually gained the upper hand. However, just when he was about to lose consciousness and completely succumb to the will of destruction, suddenly, a soul force full of life breath poured into his body. Under the healing power of this soul force, Chang Xia suddenly woke up and felt a cool feeling. The idea came to mind, and the pain in the body was greatly relieved. Much better. Chang Xia was surprised and had a new understanding of the healing power of Juxin begonia. Although there is still pain in the body, it has been weakened to a tolerable level. No wonder it is said that with 9-hearted begonia, one cannot die even if he wants to. This healing ability is really scary. Okay, let's remove the martial spirit's possession, Yi Renxin said. Chang Xia nodded and released the spirit's possession. At the same time, Yi Renxin also withdrew Juxin Haitang's treatment. When I'm treating you, my soul power is consumed much faster than when I heal other people. Yi Renxin frowned and said, if Yingling comes, I'm afraid I can only hold on for a moment before my soul power is exhausted. A moment, Chang Xia murmured, that's enough. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.